The life of a ninja beginning in the Hidden Mist Village. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 476 Forbidden God. Raw. The Vulpix roared and struggled, but it just couldn't break the cold chains on its body. It couldn't even stand up again because of the 8 cold chains pulling from 8 different directions, let alone breaking the cold chains on its body. At the same time, the mist ninjas who were ready to reinforce at any time on the edge of the battlefield were dumbfounded. With just one move, the newcomer completely suppressed their helpless Vulpix with just one move. It was too scary and too dreamy. A mist ninja subconsciously pinched his companion and immediately received his companion's furious rebuke. Hiss, what are you doing? No, I just want to try whether we are dreaming, he replied woodenly, still not quite believing what he saw. Pinch yourself, don't touch me. He slapped away his companion's hand that was stretched out again, and the mist ninja was pinched so angry that his face turned red. At the same time, Mainjetsu Kizuki, who saw this scene, was also horrified. The power displayed by Qishuang was so strong that it made him feel a little bit of fear. Although the tailed beasts have the wisdom of normal people, they are not human after all, and cannot play as many tricks as ninjas. Therefore, despite their terrifying chakra amount and terrifying moves like the tailed beast Jade, they cannot escape human control after all. However, facing such a ninja with the power to suppress the tailed beasts, Manu felt powerless. He couldn't help but start to consider again whether to take control of the Kid family from his father and stop this war where victory is becoming increasingly slim. In the distance, Uchiha Obito and his group also frowned when they saw it. Are you sure you can break free from the ice chain? Obito asked Kakuzu solemnly. The green-eyed man took a breath and said, my full strength power is about the same as that of the tailed beasts. Even the 6-tailed beast can't break free from the ice chain, so I can't get away either. Although he has 5 lives, if he is tied up by the ice chain, 10 more lives will not be enough to die. Then, Kakuzu shook his head and said, I think there is no need for me to stay here any longer. Take me to the 3 tails. After saying that, he looked at the white Zetsu clone that was summoned. He finally managed to escape from Ashirama Senju, and he didn't want to die here for no reason. Especially this guy who mastered the power of the immortal and exposed such terrifying power. Although he was not dragged down by the huge size of the Vulpix and would not be tied up easily just by seeing the process of the opponent knocking down and suppressing the Vulpix, he knew that he was definitely not his opponent. It was good that the opponent did not use the power of the immortal, but once he used the power of the immortal, he would have no choice but to run for his life. Follow me. The white Zetsu clone called out and immediately led the way, leading Kakuzu and disappearing into the ruins. Do you still want to snatch the Vulpix from that guy? Black, who was still standing there, asked Obito desperately. If you don't try, how do you know it won't work? Obito looked at him deeply. With the power of Kamu, he can come and go freely, and with I's energy, he has the capital to try. Okay, you decide. Black Zetsu's tone was somewhat helpless. Because he had no combat ability and was not a deterrent to others, he could only be a bystander or guide most of the time and could not directly participate. Uchiha Obito did not listen to his advice and he was powerless. On the other side, the Vulpix bound by the cold chain was still struggling desperately. However, even if it used all its strength, there was still no crack on the cold chain. Don't waste your energy. Qishuang walked over slowly, with his hands behind his back, saying, I made these cold locks with ice from underground water veins. In other words, these 8 cold locks carry the total weight of the 8 underground water veins. Unless your strength can shake the total weight of these 8 underground water veins, you will never be able to stand up from the ground. By the way, I'll tell you that the ice blocks that make up these cold locks are also extremely hard, and it's impossible for you to break them. Moreover, because they are based on these 8 underground water veins, as long as the water source is endless, even if there is some damage, they will recover quickly. Even if a god comes, I can still lock him. Here. Not to mention you. Based on the ice compress technique and water whip, he combined and created the immortal technique 8 locks to forbidden gods. In a water environment, the ability of this trick to trap and lock will be greatly magnified. Especially on the sea, with endless seawater as the guide and ice as the lock. Even if Liudeo was resurrected and Kagura came again, they would still be firmly locked by this move, and no one could escape. If he left the water, he could also use this move, but at that time, he could only be the source of water, and he had to rely on his own chakra to maintain the cold lock, so the ability to lock was naturally greatly weakened. At the same time, hearing his impolite mockery, the locked Vulpix was ashamed and angry, and struggled more fiercely. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Unfortunately, just as the other party said, the 8 cold locks were so heavy that it was unimaginable. It struggled for a long time, but it could only barely shake it a little bit, and it was impossible to turn over and get up. As for breaking, there was no hope, because there was not a crack on the hard cold lock. It was not even qualified to see the repair ability of the cold lock with water as a source. Finally, until it was exhausted, it stopped struggling helplessly. I'm not willing, I'm not willing, I'm not willing. Lying on the ground, it shouted weakly. After finally escaping from the Jinchuriki's seal, he thought that he could take advantage of the war to get rid of Kirigakure's control and even take revenge. Unexpectedly, he was inexplicably defeated by such a horned young man, after being happy for less than half an hour. Such ups and downs really made him feel uneasy. Qishuang continued to approach and whispered, "What if you are unwilling? The strong prey on the weak. This is the most primitive law of nature. Just like those Kirigakure ninjas you killed just now, they are also unwilling, but you don't care at all, and I'm stronger than you, so I naturally don't care what you think. I just want you to stay in Kirigakure and listen to me." As he said, he had walked to the front of the Vulpix, less than 5 meters away from it. For humans, this distance is not small, but for a giant beast like the Vulpix, that is more than 20 meters tall and more than 30 meters long, it is almost nothing. Go to hell, arrogant guy. With a roar, Qishuang immediately saw that the Vulpix, which had already accepted its fate, suddenly opened its huge mouth. No, the wolf decay then, a stream of white mucus gushed out of its mouth like a spring. However, Qishuang did not let down his guard, just because he had subdued the Vulpix. He immediately raised his eyebrows, and transformed his chakra into cold smoke that seeped out of his body. Ice release, ice sealing technique. Chapter 477 Sadness. Crack, crack, crack. The moment it came into contact with the cold smoke, the water in the white mucus froze quickly, and then it stopped straight in the air like a frozen waterfall. Seeing the freezing momentum spreading, Vulpix quickly stopped spewing mucus, and mobilized chakra to spray a string of colorful bubbles. Water style, strong acid bubble. It turned the acidic mucus into a water style bubble bomb, and attacked Qishuang, who was close at hand again. However, its idea was doomed to fail. Qishuang's ice style specifically countered all water styles, and Vulpix, which mainly used water styles, had no chance of resisting him from the beginning. Then, in the astonished eyes of Vulpix and the surrounding mist ninjas, the huge bubbles, at the moment of contact with the cold smoke, also condensed into ice lumps, and then fell to the ground with a tinkling sound. How could it be? Vulpix lost his voice. Qishuang looked at it coldly and said, "Don't waste your energy. In the current ninja world, no water escape can work on me. Every kind of power has an infinite growth limit, but not everyone understands this and focuses on developing them. This also leads to the fact that most people's water escape is at an extremely mediocre level and cannot escape the scope of being restrained by his ice sealing technique. Even a giant beast like the Vulpix, that has lived for hundreds or even thousands of years, with almost endless chakra and wisdom comparable to that of humans, its water escape level is still similar to that of most ninjas. Because they don't have the patience to practice like humans, study the essence of power, and improve themselves, they can only use a huge amount of chakra to suppress others. When facing most people, this move is always effective, but when facing a top ninja like him, the tailed beast is just a kind of iron full with more chakra. It is even not as good as the pressure that ninjas of the same level bring to Qishuang. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Vulpix was like crazy, constantly spitting bubbles, but unfortunately, as soon as it came into contact with the cold air, emitted by the 7 frosts, it was immediately frozen into an ice lump, and fell to the ground like an ice egg. Outside the field, seeing that Vulpix had tried every means to break free from the 8 cold chains, and no moves could be used, it was completely subdued. The mist ninjas couldn't help but cheer. Great, it's really great. The monster was finally subdued. Yes, our dead companions can rest in peace. At this moment, the remaining ninjas of Hazuki, Terumi, and Hoshigaki seemed to have forgotten their previous hatred, and all cheered for the subduing of Vulpix. Cough cough cough. Seeing that the situation was settled, Manu Hazuki coughed twice, and then said to his ninja with a pale face, "Let's go." Seeing that he looked ugly, a person next to him hurriedly asked with concern, "Manu, are you okay?" "It's okay, it's just that the chakra is overconsumed, and my body can't take it." Cough cough cough. Manu waved his hand, and coughed violently twice again. "But, if we just give the Vulpix to that guy called Nanami, will it be?" The man didn't finish his words, but the meaning was very clear. Manu turned his head, looked at him deeply, and sternly rebuked, "Even if we want to fight for the control of the Vulpix, it's not now. Such a huge beast, if you want to use its power, you must wrestle it. If we fight for the control of the Vulpix now, once it escapes, you go and suppress it for me again." Hearing this, the man couldn't help but lower his head and said embarrassedly, "I spoke out of turn." Then, Manu led his ninjas and quietly disappeared at the edge of the battlefield with a slightly frivolous step. Soon, the headquarters of Manu, Terumi, and Hoshigaki received the news that the Vulpix was subdued, and the top leaders of all parties finally breathed a sigh of relief. The Vulpix appeared too suddenly, and the war made people from all parties gather in one place. The tailed beast attacked recklessly, resulting in heavy casualties on all sides. It takes time to organize special troops and time to subdue the Vulpix again. Whether it is organizing manpower or suppressing the tailed beast, it takes time. But what they lack most is time. Because a large number of injured people on the battlefield needed time to evacuate. Every second that the time to subdue the Vulpix was delayed, more people would die. The ice ninja named Nanami undoubtedly solved their urgent problem. However, after solving the urgent problem, new troubles followed. Which side does a terrifying strong man who can subdue the tailed beast by himself belong to? Which side should control the resubdued Vulpix? Soon, their troubles were answered again. Teruma's faction was very excited because they learned from the young clan leader that the ice ninja named Nanami was in the same camp as them. In contrast, the Hazuki faction was full of worries. Nanami's strength broke through the psychological defense line of Hazuki Masamune and many high-level people. They stood on the opposite side of a strong man who could influence the situation of the war. Even the Vulpix, which they originally regarded as a trump card, fell into the hands of the other side, and their hope of victory became increasingly slim. "Manu, with your ability, can you check and balance him?" Hazuki Masamune asked his son with the last glimmer of hope. Then, many high-level officials of Hazuki also looked at him expectantly. If even Hazuki Manu, the strongest under the Mizukage, can't do anything, then they need to find a way out of this war. No one wants to stay on a ship that is about to sink. What's more, after this battle, their forces have shrunk by nearly half. Although Terumi Hoshigaki on the opposite side is not much better, if they continue to fight, they are afraid that they will use up their last fortune. Everyone has already had the idea of ending the war. However, they heard the bitter sigh of Hazuki Manu. "I'm sorry, father. That person's ice escape completely restrains water escape. Even if I have mastered the secret technique left by the second generation, I still don't have a 10% chance of winning. I'm sorry." Kizuna Masamune rubbed his forehead and said in a complicated tone, "Okay, go down and rest. Your health is important." "Yes." Kizuna Manayu dragged his tired body and turned away helplessly. "Masamune, what should we do now? That person is too powerful. If we can't find someone to check and balance him, there is basically no possibility of winning this war." When Manayu walked away, the high-level officials immediately surrounded the leader of the Kizuna clan. "What are you panicking about? Kizuna Masamune shouted angrily, suppressing the noise of the crowd, and then said, "Have you forgotten that in addition to the strong men in our village, there are also several powerful outsiders in Kirigakure this time? And there are still many hostages in our prison." Hearing this, everyone immediately realized that they still had cards to play and were far from being at the end of their rope. Soon, with the help of the intelligence network of the Hazuki family, Hazuki Masamune once again found Uchiha Obito, who was watching the fun. Tomorrow is National Day. I really want to postpone it for a day. Chapter 478 Undercurrent. Masamune Kizuki, why don't you stay at Kizuki's house to rest your troops? Why do you come to me? Uchiha Obito looked at the visitor with amusement. I want you to help me contain that guy called Nanafrost. Masamune Kizuki said straight to the point. Uchiha Obito glanced at the giant beast tied up by the cold chain over there and said, "You have seen the strength of that guy. It is very dangerous. Why should I take such a big risk to help you?" As he said that, he crossed his arms, showing a look of indifference. Hazuki Masamune said seriously, "He is indeed dangerous, but that is only for us. With your space-time ability, he can't threaten your life at all. Right now, all three of us have suffered heavy losses. We only have the power to defend, and no longer have the ability to attack. The defense force of Hashigakitarumi's base will inevitably be weakened. In such a difficult time, the two families will never think that we will attack again. As long as you help us contain that terrifying guy, we will definitely be able to surprise and destroy the two families of Hashigakitarumi. This is his last chance. If he misses this opportunity, their hope will become slimmer when the two families rest and recover. A fight to the death. It's quite courageous, worthy of being the Hazuki clan leader." Hearing this battle plan, Obito couldn't help but sigh. The guy who can sit on the position of clan leader is indeed not a mediocre person. This courage is definitely not something that ordinary people have. It's a pity that this ambitious clan leader was born in the wrong era, because he had already prepared for the curtain call of this civil war in Kirigakure. Hazuki's desperate fight was doomed to fail. However, since the other party came to him for help, he was happy to play one last time. "I can help you, but what benefit can I get?" Obito said to him playfully. Hearing that he was willing to agree, Hazuki Masamune secretly breathed a sigh of relief. If the other party refused, without the right people to restrain that person, his surprise attack plan was doomed to fail. Then, he said solemnly to Obito, "After the Vulpix is successfully sealed, we will launch a surprise attack. On the one hand, we will raid Hashigakitarumi's base, and on the other hand, we will seize control of the Vulpix. As long as you hold him back, we will give it to you as a reward. After we seize control of the Vulpix, even after killing Hashigakitarumi, I can turn around the main force and drown him with human wave tactics. Just like the third Raikage, who was known as the strongest spear and strongest shield, was dragged to death by the Iwagakure. It can be seen that you and he have a lot of hatred. If we can kill him, it will be a good thing for both you and us." Obito thought about it seriously and nodded. No problem. He was not optimistic about the plan of the leader of the Hazuki clan, because he had checked the resume of Nanashiro left in Kirigakure, so he knew clearly that the other party was not the third Raikage, and would never be as selfless as the third Raikage. However, if he could stir up the water in Kirigakure a little more, he would not mind doing a little more. On the other side, Hashigaki Kisame was also trying to persuade the young patriarch of the Hashigaki family. "Master Kiichi, our plan is foolproof. If we don't take advantage of the opportunity of the two families being severely damaged, we will definitely pay a higher price in the future. Let me think about it. Let me think about it." Hashigaki Kiichi was sitting in the main seat, feeling uncertain and frowning. After all, he still didn't have the courage of Hazuki Masamune. Although he had a lot of evil thoughts hidden in his mind, he was hesitant when the time came. Moreover, he was also frightened by the ice escape expert who suddenly appeared in Tarumi's family. He really couldn't bear to be an enemy of a terrifying expert who could suppress the tailed beast by himself. Seeing that he was hesitant, Hashigaki Kisame continued, "Master Kiichi, we, the Hashigaki clan, are natural underwater warriors. Except for the Hazuki clan, no one can be our opponent underwater. No matter how strong that man is, he is just a human being and can only breathe in the air. It's impossible for him to beat us underwater. Hearing this, Hoshigaki Kiichi's heart was slightly moved, and suddenly he remembered something, and shook his head and said, "It still won't work. According to the intelligence sent back from the front line, that man has the ability to restrain all water jutsu. Once he freezes a water area, our Hoshigaki clan will be finished." Hoshigaki Kisame grinned, revealing 2 rows of white triangular teeth, and said, "Master Kiichi forgot again that he is just a human. Although he can subdue the tailed beasts by himself, he himself does not have as much chakra as the tailed beasts. He can freeze part of the water area. Can he freeze the entire mist village? Does he have so much chakra?" Hearing this, Kiichi Hoshigaki's eyes lit up. Because of individual differences, the amount of chakra of each ninja is different. Some may have more, and some may have less. But no matter how much chakra an ordinary person has, it is difficult to compare with the tailed beast. It is precisely because the amount of chakra of a tailed beast is so unimaginable that it is regarded as an individual with unlimited chakra. In fact, it is just that the chakra of the tailed beast is much more than that of ordinary people. In the history of the ninja world, there are indeed ninjas who can really compare the chakra amount with the tailed beast, but such people are simply rare. And the guy called Ninashiro is obviously not among them. Because if the other party really has such a terrifying amount of chakra, such a conspicuous feature, the intelligence sent from the front line will not be unrecorded. After thinking about this, he excitedly said to his subordinates in the command room, "Hurry up and prepare according to the plan. When the 6-tailed seal is completed, we will launch an attack and kill the 2 families of Kizuna and Terumi in one fell swoop. Master Kiichi, then I will go down and prepare." Kisame lowered his head and said respectfully, Go. Use your Sumehuda to absorb as much as possible. I'm going to give them a big surprise. Let them know who is the real overlord of Kirigakure." Ha ha ha. With Kiichi Hoshigaki's arrogant laughter, Hoshigaki Kisame disappeared at the door of the command room with the big sword Sumehuda tied in bandages on his back. On the battlefield, Nana Frost quietly stayed by Vulpix's side. Although his 8 chains of the Forbidden God was there, Vulpix couldn't get away at all, but his 8 chains themselves had no ability to seal chakra, and could only suppress Vulpix's movements. Seeing that there was no hope of escape, Vulpix gave up struggling, and continued to use chakra to create trouble, launching indiscriminate attacks on the surroundings. Whether it was those bubble attacks or acidic mucus attacks, Nana Frost didn't take them seriously, and could freeze them at will. But the opponent's tailed beast ball made him have to cheer up. Because the ice release chakra mode has not been successfully transformed into a fairy technique, it has some conflicts with the sage mode, and cannot be used at the same time for the time being. Although his sage state also has strong self-defense capabilities, it is far inferior to the ice release chakra mode. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 479 Seal, Part 1. Immortal mode is only due to the increase in physical fitness caused by natural energy, which makes Qishuang's body's resistance, recovery ability, etc. greatly improved in this state. When facing an attack, you will also be injured, but the injury will be extremely weakened, which is far less effective than the ice release chakra mode, that directly uses chakra to offset external attacks. Therefore, in this immortal state, once he is hit by the tailed beast Jade, although he will not be killed on the spot, serious injury will definitely be inevitable. More importantly, it's just him. Others don't have such strong physical fitness as him. Once the tailed beast Jade is successfully projected by Vulpix, it is unknown how many casualties will be added. Therefore, he must keep an eye on Vulpix and prevent it from attacking the surroundings wantonly. In addition, there is also the purpose of guarding against Uchiha. The organization the other party belongs to is called Akatsuki, and its ultimate goal is to collect the 9-tailed beasts, resurrect the legendary 10 tails, and then reshape the world with force. Now that Vulpix is right in front of him, Qishuang will naturally not leave easily, and give Obito a chance to take action. Humans. You abominable group of humans. I won't let you go. When I come out next time, I will definitely destroy your Kirigakure village. With the accumulation of tailed beast jade, the process was interrupted by Qishuang again and again. Vulpix completely gave up the idea of resisting and could only be chained to the ground and roar loudly. Also because of Vulpix, the three forces unanimously chose a truce, each busy searching for survivors on the battlefield and rescuing their wounded companions. After about 2 hours, all the wounded were removed from the battlefield. At the same time, many Mist ninjas came one after another to watch the locked Vulpix. However, they all stood 100 meters away, not daring to get close easily, for fear of offending the terrifying and powerful man who could suppress the tailed beast by himself. Everyone was sighing at how powerful and terrifying the tailed beast was. In just a short while, nearly half of their companions were lost. The tailed beast jade, that felt like the sun, made it impossible for anyone to resist. It was so terrifying. What's even more horrifying is that Kirigakure village had unknowingly given birth to such a strong man who could single-handedly suppress tailed beasts. It was difficult for them to estimate how powerful the young man in white with a pair of blue pointed horns was. Not long after, Qishuang saw more than a dozen figures rushing towards them from the east. The leader was a man with long brown hair and a blue skirt, who looked very familiar. "Why are you here in person?" Qishuang said, covering her forehead as she looked at the group of people who had just landed. The leader was none other than Terumi, who was supposed to be at the rear. Seeing his face painted with blue makeup, the beauty in the blue dress was stunned for a moment, then took a closer look, and then confirmed that it was Qishuang. "It won't work if I don't come," she sighed, walked over slowly and said, "Sealing the tailed beast requires professional technology and professional manpower. This is the top secret of the village. Have the qualifications to learn and master the sealing of the tailed beast. There are not many professional ninjas with beast abilities. And because of the civil war during this period and the rampage of the Six Tails just now, there have been many casualties among the ninjas who have mastered this ability." As she said this, she turned around and glanced at the people behind her. He glanced at it and continued, "These 11 people are the sealing force that I managed to put together by gathering all the strength of the Mikigakure family and Arterumi family. There are even a few in there who are just like me. I only have some superficial knowledge, and I deliberately asked him to help me." Hearing this, Qishuang couldn't help but feel a little bit in her heart. He looked at everyone and saw that there were a few injured guys inside. He couldn't help but worry a little. Can you really successfully seal the Vulpix? At this moment, there was a burst of wanton ridicule from behind. "Just a few of them want to seal me, how naive." Qishuang turned around and glared at Liu, snorted, "Shut up, lock." Then, he controlled a cold lock and moved it with his mind position and immediately tied Vulpix's mouth tightly. His eyes widened in anger, but he could only make humming sounds from the cracks in his mouth. "Why is this guy so obedient and locked here motionless by you?" Terumi asked in surprise. The tailed beast, that is synonymous with violent, actually showed no resistance at all. It was really too cool. Hearing this, Vulpix couldn't help but feel sad. It was so aggrieved. It's not that it doesn't want to resist, but the 8 cold chains are too heavy and can't be pulled, even if it wants to turn over. Qishuang glanced at the beauty in the blue skirt playfully and whispered, "If I put the weight of 8 underground water veins on you, you probably won't want to move." Water veins? Terumi then noticed that at the end of the cold lock, there is abundant water vapor surging. Listening to this meaning, Qishuang connected the cold lock with the underground water veins, just like attaching a very heavy pendant to the end of the cold lock. No wonder Vulpix is so obedient. Emotions are like chains that are too heavy to move. Understanding this, she smiled and said, "You have done us a big favor. Originally, I was a little worried that too few people would affect the seal of the Six Tails. Now, the Six Tails cannot move. If we can let us do whatever we want, it should only be a matter of time before we seal it. Technology is only one of the difficulties in sealing the tailed beast, and the other is that the tailed beast is too violent and dangerous. With the size of the tailed beast and the terrifying chakra power, even a slight counterattack is not an attack that ordinary people can withstand. Therefore, every time the various forces seal the tailed beast, they will cause a lot of casualties. Especially the ninjas involved in the sealing work are extremely dangerous. Precisely because sealing tailed beasts is too dangerous. Even if many people are qualified to learn the techniques of sealing tailed beasts, they are not willing to spend their energy on it. He was just afraid that one day he would be caught by the higher-ups and take part in the work of sealing the tailed beast. Now, the Vulpix cannot move and is just a living target waiting for them to strike. Without the threat posed by the tailed beast itself, their sealing work will undoubtedly be much easier. Immediately, Qishuang said to the beauty in the blue skirt, "Okay, you start sealing as soon as possible. I will be by your side to protect your safety." "Yes." Terumi Mei nodded and immediately winked at a few people. Then he ordered, "Everyone is in your position. Prepare to seal." "Yes, sir." Immediately, everyone dispersed starting from Terumi Mei's position in tacit agreement, and each occupied a position surrounding the Vulpix. Just when everyone dispersed, a white palm quietly reached out to Qishuang's head. Suddenly I remembered that, whether it was Tsunagakure sealing the one-tailed one or Kumogakure sealing the eight-tailed one, the third Reikage was present, and everything was in a very embarrassing situation, with many people dying. In Shippuden, Naruto and several other weaklings, not even one person who was professional at sealing tailed beasts, brought a magic scroll to seal the three tails, and they almost succeeded. It's child's play, when you think about it. Ha ha ha. Chapter 480 Dragon Horn. The perceptive Nanashang immediately noticed the abnormality behind her, and immediately slapped the white palm aside. "Ahem. Do your sealing work well, and don't touch my head," he said to the owner of the palm righteously. "But I'm really curious, and want to touch the pair of blue horns on your head." Terumi Mei opened her eyes wide, and stretched her hand to Nanashang's head again with great interest. People are always curious about unknown things. In addition to Terumi Mei, the other ninjas in charge of sealing, and the audience not far away also had a strong curiosity about Nanashang's strange face and blue horns. However, they didn't know Nanashang, and coupled with the terrifying strength displayed by Nanashang, they didn't dare to approach rashly. Even with the light of Terumi Mei, several sealing ninjas got the opportunity to observe this man who suppressed the tailed beast single-handedly up close. But in front of him, several people didn't even dare to breathe. How could they dare to ask aloud? It was because Mei, Terumi and Qishuang were very familiar with each other that she dared to ask directly, and even reached out to touch the pair of strange horns. After knocking off the evil hand again, Qishuang explained helplessly, "These are dragon horns, a symbol of my being an immortal. Once I enter the state of immortalization, they will grow automatically." As a normal person, he would naturally feel a little uncomfortable with the sudden addition of a pair of blue horns on his head. This discomfort was not physical, but psychological. Because the horns were too conspicuous, he became an alien in the crowd. In addition, human beings are naturally curious, and everyone would unconsciously focus on the pair of strange horns the moment they saw him. This made him particularly unhappy. He was not a rare animal exhibited in a zoo. Therefore, he extremely disliked people staring at his horns, let alone wanting to touch his horns. Dragon horns. Interesting. Mei Terumi looked around him, and her eyes still did not leave the pair of blue horns. At the same time, everyone present also understood the origin of the pair of blue horns. However, except for a very small number of people who have heard of immortals, many people simply do not understand what immortals are. "Hey, what are immortals?" someone quietly asked his companion. "It is a human being who can control natural energy and use immortal arts." The companion replied solemnly. "Is it very powerful?" the man asked again. The companion rolled his eyes at him and said unhappily, "If it is not powerful, how can you suppress the six-tailed beast with one move?" Just as everyone was whispering, Qishuang urged the blue-skirted beauty again, "Hurry up and seal the six-tailed beast. I don't know what the attitude of the ghost lantern is. If they come to cause trouble again, it will be troublesome." At this time, because of the repeated battles in the ghost lantern station earlier, he consumed a lot of chakra and only had less than 1/3 of the original amount left. It was also thanks to his experience in the Dragon Cave, when he was baptized by the seeds of immortal arts, the tempering of natural energy, and the improvement of physical fitness, the amount of chakra increased, so there was some surplus. Otherwise, with his original chakra, it is estimated that there would be no surplus after leaving the Ghost Lantern family, and he would have no energy to suppress the six-tailed beast again. Therefore, the amount of Sage Chakra that is based on his own chakra and integrated with natural energy is naturally not as much as in his heyday. Fortunately, although the Sage mode has a time limit and cannot be maintained permanently, as long as the Sage Chakra is not exhausted, he will not exit the Sage state. Although his Sage Chakra is not as much as in his heyday, in this Sage state, in this Mist Village, he has the confidence to deal with all difficulties. Urging Ming to seal the six tails quickly is just to reduce the possibility of accidents. Terumi rolled her eyes and said, "Touch it for me. I want to try what the dragon horn feels like." The bright thing is right in front of her. She can only look, but not touch it, which undoubtedly stimulates her desire to test it. You know, that is the dragon horn. Only dragons have something. She has never seen the legendary dragon, but the dragon horn is right in front of her. If she can't touch it, she will definitely regret it for the rest of her life. Hearing this, Qishuang's face suddenly darkened. If someone else wanted to touch his dragon horns, he would definitely get angry, but this person was Ming, so it was a different matter. Helplessly, he could only twitch his lips and say, "Let's do it later. When the things here are settled, I'll find another time for you to touch it." "No." Terumi raised her eyebrows and said seriously, "How can I wait until later? I want to try it now." The dragon horns were right in front of her, and within her reach. She couldn't wait any longer. Seeing her expectant eyes, Qishuang didn't have the heart to say no after all. She had to turn around to express her consent, and glared at everyone around her. "What are you looking at? Have you never seen a dragon horn before?" Hearing this, everyone complained in their hearts. They really had never seen a dragon horn. However, intimidated by his power, no one dared to say such a thing. They all turned their heads away and dared not look at him. With his tacit consent, Terumi touched the pair of blue pointed horns as she wished. The tentacles were smooth and slightly cool, and there was nothing particularly magical or unique about them. "It's nothing special. Why do you hide it from others?" she said indignantly, recalling the feeling on her fingers. Hearing this, Qishuang immediately turned his head and said angrily, "I want to touch your feet. Are you willing?" Feet. Terumi was stunned for a moment and didn't come back to her senses. When she lowered her head and looked at her feet, her eyes swept across a mountain peak, and she suddenly understood something. "Asshole." She was angry and annoyed and stomped hard on Qishuang's toes. Hiss. Although Ming's stomping had no effect at all in the state of immortalization, Qishuang still took a breath and pretended to be in great pain, because he knew that if he didn't let the other party satisfy the pleasure of revenge, he would suffer later. "Stay aside. Don't interfere with us sealing the Vulpix." After getting a satisfactory result, Terumi immediately sent him away and took out a scroll from her pocket. Release. After quickly forming a seal, accompanied by white smoke, a half-human high bronze tripod appeared on the open scroll. That was the tool she was going to use to seal the six-tailed beast. To seal a powerful tailed beast, a powerful sealing technique is needed. The seal is invisible and intangible, and must be carried by special ninja tools or materials to last for a long time, just like the seal scroll that carries her bronze tripod. However, the sealing technique to seal the tailed beast is too powerful, and ordinary tools cannot bear the seal. Therefore, she found such a bronze tripod made of meteorite iron from Terumi's house to ensure that there will be no problems with the tool that carries the seal. Chapter 481 Seal, Part 2. Originally, the most suitable person to bear the seal of the tailed beast was the Jinkriki. Unfortunately, the person who serves as the Jinkriki must have extremely strong vitality and a physique that will not be rejected by the chakra of the tailed beast. Otherwise, the result will be death and the seal will be broken if he is not careful. Therefore, every target person selected as the Jinkriki is the result of careful investigation and research by various forces. But now it is a time of war, and Terumi and others simply do not have the energy to reselect the Jinkriki of the six-tailed beast. They can only use the meteorite copper tripod to bear the seal temporarily and slowly select the Jinkriki in the future. Although there will be an extra trouble of transferring the seal of the tailed beast in the middle, they have no better choice for the time being. Get up. Seeing that everyone has taken their positions, a slightly older sealing ninja gave the order. Then, Nana Qishuang saw that the 12 people, including Mei, quickly formed a group of hand seals, and then a white light shot out from each person's hand, converging into a huge light spot just above the huge body of the six-tailed beast. Instantly, the huge spot of light emitted countless streams of light, drawing an elegant arc in the sky, and finally fell quietly to the ground, like a birdcage, trapping Vulpix inside. Collect. The older sealing ninja ordered again, and everyone pulled the light back in unison, and immediately saw the cage fence that trapped Vulpix slowly shrink inward. Seeing that he was about to be sealed again, Vulpix became more and more excited. It struggled desperately, but the cold lock was too heavy, and it couldn't even shake its tail. It could only lie on the ground helplessly, watching the fence tighten, waiting for the fate of being sealed again. Even because its mouth was tied by the 7 frosts, it couldn't even roar to vent, and could only make some humming sounds, which added a bit of pity to this terrifying beast. Outside the field, with the arrival of Terumi Mei, the Terumi ninjas who were originally watching the excitement from a distance, and didn't dare to approach slowly walked over. They wanted to get a closer look at the suppressed Vulpix, the man who had subdued the tailed beast single-handedly, and to keep watch for the young clan leader, and take on the responsibility of guarding. Nanashiro saw this, and immediately gathered her chakra in her palm, transforming it into the nature of ice, which materialized into a 6-foot-long ice spear. Then she threw it out, and stuck it under everyone's feet, scaring the Mist Ninjas to stop immediately. Sir Nanashiro, we are ninjas belonging to Terumi. We are here to protect Lady Terumi Mei from sealing the Vulpix. We are not enemies. Someone shouted loudly with courage. Because of the battle between the Hazuki family and the Vulpix, everyone soon knew the name of the young man in white, and also knew that he belonged to Terumi's faction, and was in the same camp as this, so they dared to approach with confidence. Qishuang replied coldly, I know. But I don't know how many of you are sincere, and how many of you are hiding evil intentions, so I can't let you get too close. Within a radius of 10 meters is the limit of what I can tolerate. If you really want to take on the responsibility of guarding, then stand 10 meters away, to form a line of defense, and prohibit anyone from approaching, especially the ninjas of the Hazuki school. If anyone rashly crosses the boundary I have drawn, whether it is a Shigeki Terumi or Hazuki, they will all be killed without mercy. Hearing his murderous voice, the Mist Ninjas couldn't help but shrink their necks. No one had the confidence to survive after crossing the boundary. That man was too scary. Then, the Mist Ninjas of Terumi's school immediately built a line of defense 10 meters away, and did not try to get closer. Time passed little by little, and the sealing process of the Vulpix was still proceeding in an orderly manner, but the speed of the seal shrinking was getting slower and slower. Although the resistance of the 6-tailed beast was almost non-existent due to the suppression of Qishuang's 8 chains of the Forbidden God, the 6-tailed beast's mountain-like body was there after all. With only Terumi Mei's group of 12 people, and a few guys who were just making up the numbers, the task of sealing the tailed beasts was by no means easy. You know, the sealing technique of the tailed beasts has a certain time and space basis, and it needs to play the characteristics of putting sumaru into a mustard seed. Putting the tailed beasts, that are as big as a mountain, into a relatively small sealing space is a very laborious task in itself. It's like forcibly compressing a ball of air. The further you compress it, the more difficult it will be. Therefore, the speed of the seal shrinking is getting slower and slower. Moreover, as time passed, more and more people came to the edge of the battlefield to watch the excitement. It was so crowded that the Terumi ninjas who were responsible for guarding could not help but tense up. The atmosphere gradually became depressing. Seeing that Terumi Mei looked uneasy, Qishuang stood beside her and whispered, concentrate your mind and focus on the seal. I'll take care of everything. Then, Terumi Mei's heart, which was hanging in the air, gradually calmed down. However, although Qishuang said it lightly, he was not at all relaxed in his heart. With the keen perception of the sage state, he found that there were signs of a large group of Mist Ninja activities in the back of the battlefield. If they were just watching the fun, there shouldn't be so many people moving at the same time. Everyone should be moving in a scattered manner. It was more like a sign of the Mist Ninja troops' mobilization. Moreover, he also noticed that those signs that seemed to be the Mist Ninja troops' activities were very close to the Kizuna station. I'm afraid that the old guy Kizuna Masamune wants to fight to the death. He immediately made a judgment in his heart. The other party must want to launch a surprise attack when everyone is not prepared, but at the moment, he is worried that he will release the six-tailed beast and die together, so he has not taken action for the time being. I think that, when the six-tailed beast is completely sealed, it will be the time for them to provoke a war again. Thinking of this, Qishuang hurriedly said to Miming, there are signs that Guideng is about to launch a surprise attack. I suggest that you send someone back to pass the message and let the people in the base strengthen their vigilance. With him here, Guideng can't make any waves, but in the base of Terumi's family, he is out of reach. Hearing this, Terumi immediately shouted to the nearest ceiling ninja, Takizawa, stop your work, and come to me. That person is the one with the worst skills among their group of ceiling ninjas. Without him, the ceiling work will be slower, but it will not be affected much. Then, the man slowly dispersed the chakra light in his hand, and the remaining few people shared his original sealing work very tacitly. What do you want, sir? Takizawa hurried up and asked solemnly. Pass my order. Everyone in the base will raise the alert to the highest level to prevent Azuka's sneak attack. In addition, notify Hashigaki to strengthen the defense. Terumi was distracted, maintaining the seal while giving orders. Yes. After receiving the order, Takizawa left instantly and disappeared at the end in the blink of an eye. Time passed little by little, and near noon, the mountain-like body of Vulpix had been compressed to the size of a calf by the seal. The sealing process of Vulpix is nearing the end. All the ninjas participating in the sealing were on edge, and no one wanted an accident to happen at this critical moment. However, there was no accident, but the plan had already been planted. A shark-faced man with Samehuda on his back was making a seal, while slowly approaching the battlefield where Vulpix was. The seal stopped, and the technique was completed. He stopped, took a deep breath, puffed up his chest, and then converted a large amount of chakra into the nature of water and spit it out from his mouth. Water style, who's going to build a dam? I know many people have been waiting for this moment for a long time. Now everyone can build the dam. Ha 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 ha. Chapter 482 Flood. The blue torrent that spewed out of the shark's mouth was like a surging wave, spreading unstoppably around. Seeing that the water on the ground was getting deeper and deeper, it immediately submerged the ruins of the surrounding houses. But this was just the beginning. The water was still rising rapidly and spreading rapidly around. At the same time, Qishuang on the battlefield immediately noticed something unusual. What is that? He looked to the west and shouted subconsciously. It seemed that some huge monster rushed over from there, and the mighty power made his eyelids jump. Then, the ground began to shake violently, some small stones jumped slightly, and a tsunami-like roar came from the air. On the horizon, a blue and endless curtain immediately rose. Looking closely again, it was not a curtain at all, but a huge wave covering the sky and the sun. Seeing this scene, everyone on the battlefield was shocked. Is this a tsunami? Someone shouted in horror. No, how could that tsunami reach here? I feel like it's more like the fourth Hokage's move. Someone shouted back, while making a seal. Even though the possibility of blocking the huge wave was low, he still didn't give up the idea of resisting it. There were many people like him, but there were even more people who were running for their lives, hoping to avoid the shock of the terrifying huge wave. Hold your ground, and leave the rest to me. On the other side, after hurriedly giving instructions to Mei and the others, Qishuang quickly made a set of hand seals, then gathered chakra in the palm of her hand, and pressed it to the ground. Senjutsu ice release wall of size chakra was transformed into ice, and then input into the ground. Immediately, a translucent, cold circular barrier rose from the ground, protecting the 12 of them, and the Vulpix trapped in the ceiling light curtain. What happened? Why are you so nervous? Terumi also noticed the terrifying fluctuations in the distance, but because she needed to concentrate on sealing the Vulpix, she didn't see what was happening behind her. Only the few seal ninjas standing opposite her showed fear on their faces. They saw everything. If it weren't for Nanoshuang's defensive spell, they would have been scared and ran away. However, before Terumi Mei could get Nanoshuang's reply, there was an increasingly deafening sound of waves and the terrified shouts of the mist ninjas outside the ice wall. Help! Although many mist ninjas prepared defensive spells to resist the impact of the waves, facing the almost boundless waves, their small defense barriers were really fragile and pitiful. In just a moment, they were destroyed by the huge waves and submerged in the blue waves. Boom. The huge waves hit the white ice wall, making a terrifying crashing sound that echoed in the circular ice wall. Terumi Mei and others suddenly felt a sharp pain in their ears, and then something warm seemed to flow out. Despite this, they still did not let go of the chakra light in their hands and stabilize the ceiling light curtain of the six-tailed beast. Qishuang had no energy to pay attention to them. He just kept outputting chakra to push the ice wall to continue to rise, because he saw that the water rolling behind him not only did not decrease at all, but had a tendency to get higher and higher. With only this barrier of only 10 meters high, it was impossible to completely block the water. Sooner or later, they would be submerged by the huge waves. As for whether the ice wall itself could not withstand the huge water pressure, he had no such worries. The wall of size was the product of the transformation of the ice release frost wall fairy art, and it also had the powerful physical defense of the frost wall. After being amplified by the fairy art, this powerful defensive art also improved the defensive ability of ninjutsu, and truly became an absolute defense, which made the enemy sigh. Even the so-called indestructible dust release, Qishuang had the confidence to block it. The water pressure of this mere 100 meters deep could not crush his barrier at all. On the other side, facing the sudden impact of huge waves, the people in the bases of Hazuki, Terumi, and Hoshigaki were all in chaos. Although they had received the order from the young clan leader to strengthen their vigilance, Terumi's family was still caught off guard by the water. That was like a natural disaster. Everyone was submerged in the deep water and swam desperately to the surface. It was a pity for the seriously injured. They finally escaped from the battlefield, but they still couldn't escape the flood disaster. They were seriously injured, and it was difficult for them to move. How could they have the strength to swim out of the water? They could only go with the flow and leave it to fate. There were even some wounded who were only left with one breath. After spitting out a long string of bubbles, they sank to the bottom of the water in despair. The Hazuki family was also in a state of panic. The sudden huge wave disrupted their raid plan. Although the ninjas of the Hazuki clan are proficient in the water transformation technique and are not afraid of flooding at all, and even such an environment is very suitable for them to fight, they still have some ordinary clansmen who have not become ninjas, as well as many affiliated family forces under their command. These people have no power to resist the water. That is like a natural disaster. Helplessly, Hazuki Masamune had to temporarily suspend the raid plan and rescue his own personnel first. As for the remaining Hoshigaki family, after seeing the huge waves, Hoshigaki Kiichi was stunned at first, and then jumped in anger. Hoshigaki Kisame, this idiot. Is there been dregs in your brain? However, no matter how angry he was, he could not stop the surging water with words. The huge waves ruthlessly submerged the Hoshigaki clan's residence, and disrupted all his plans. Long before the Dawn War, Hoshigaki Kisame brought the man named Uchiha Obito to him, and promised to help the Hoshigaki clan gain the dominance of Kirigakure. Although Kiichi Hoshigaki was very confused, he still accepted the other party's good intentions with doubt. Because, in order to show sincerity, the other party lent the controlled 4th Hoshigaki to their Hoshigaki family, and their Hoshigaki family did not pay anything, but got a chance to dominate Kirigakure for nothing. As for what the other party said, that they would ask for the 3-tail and the 6-tail as a reward afterwards, he completely threw it behind his mind. When their Hoshigaki clan dominates Kirigakure, the 3-tail and the 6-tail will be theirs, so how could they give them to an outsider for nothing? Because the 4th Hoshigaki fell into their hands, Hoshigaki Kisame proposed a plan to use Samehada to extract the 3-tail's chakra, and then use the Great Explosion Water Wave to create a vast ocean to submerge Kirigakure and defeat Terumi and Hazuki in a water battle. Because their clan can breathe with gills, they have an absolute advantage in the field of water battles. In order to ensure the chance of winning, Kiichi Hoshigaki even deliberately decided to take action after successfully sealing the Vulpix, and organized several lightning release units to specifically restrain the Hazuki clan, which also had an advantage in water battles. Unfortunately, Hoshigaki Kisame suddenly took action and disrupted his deployment. Because, except for the people of the Hoshigaki clan, the personnel of the other affiliated forces are all normal humans and cannot breathe in water. At the moment, he is quietly transferring personnel, while the other two families are paying attention to the Vulpix. Hoshigaki Kisame's move undoubtedly pitted their own people as well. Chapter 483 Lee-san. On the battlefield, as the water level rose, Qishuang continued to raise the height of the ice wall. The water level rose quickly and stopped quickly. In about 3 breaths, it rose to nearly 30 meters high, and then it stopped rising completely. However, surprisingly, this huge amount of water did not disperse as usual, but stayed completely on the battlefield. There is no doubt that this was a water escape ninjutsu performed by someone, not a natural disaster. The people who were lucky enough to float to the surface looked around and saw a vast blue ocean around them. Only a little green could be seen in the distance. The entire Kirigakure village was almost submerged in water. Only a small part near the edge of the village escaped. Who is it? Who used such a huge water escape ninjutsu? Someone shouted in horror. It must be the 4th generation. No one else can use water escape of this scale. A person next to him said confidently. To create such a large scale of water escape, one must have the chakra of the tailed beast level. In the entire Kirigakure, apart from the sealed Vulpix, only the missing 4th Hokage has this amount of chakra. Because the 4th Hokage is the perfect 3-tails Jinchuriki. However, no one understands why the 4th Hokage, who has been missing since the outbreak of the Civil War, suddenly took action at this time. Although they were confused, they had no intention of soaking in the water. They called their friends, or rescued their companions, preparing to swim out of the endless ocean. In the circular ice wall, the sealed ninjas were shocked after seeing the terrifying water outside the ice wall, and they also came to the same conclusion as those outside. No, not the 4th Hokage. Nanashiro shook his head and whispered, the 4th Hokage has fallen into the hands of Uchiha Obito. Without the help of outsiders, he can't get rid of the control of the Sharingan. And one of the purposes of Uchiha Obito coming to Kirigakure is to collect the tailed beasts. Since he has captured the 4th Hokage, he will never let go easily and give the 4th Hokage a chance to escape. After saying that, he calmed down and concentrated his energy, expanding his sage perception and trying to explore the edge of this water escape ninjutsu. 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers passed, but he still didn't touch the edge of this water escape ninjutsu until he concentrated his perception ability on an observation line, pressed his perception ability to the limit, broke through to a range of 10 kilometers, and approached the protective outer wall of Kirigakure village. He barely felt the edge of this water escape. This is a super large water escape ninjutsu with a radius of 10 kilometers. Could it be him? Nanashiro suddenly thought of someone. Who is it? Hearing this, Terumi Mei, who was still compressed and sealed, hurriedly asked. Kisame Hoshigaki. Nanashiro gritted her teeth and uttered a person's name. Kisame? Mei. Terumi was stunned for a moment and then found a shark-faced man with a giant bandage weapon on his back in her memory. That was the new owner of the big sword Sumehada. During the previous talks with the young patriarch of the Hoshigaki family, she had seen him once beside the young patriarch. And because he was carrying Sumehada, she paid a little attention to him and had some impression. Then, she frowned and questioned, I have seen that guy once. Although he has a lot of chakra, it is definitely not enough to support him to perform such a large-scale water escape. She couldn't figure out the specific scale of this water escape ninjutsu, but she could still see that, unless the chakra amount reached the level of the tailed beast, it would be impossible to perform such a water escape. Because the amount of chakra determines the scale of the technique. This is a hardware requirement that no one can avoid, and it is also a problem that cannot be solved, no matter how sophisticated the structure of the technique is. After all, this water cannot be generated out of thin air, but is a derivative transformed from chakra. Even if all the groundwater nearby is drained, it will never reach such a scale. It still requires a huge amount of chakra conversion to make up for the gap. Nanashi shook her head and sighed. He really can't do it alone, but he has a Sakura in his hand. Sakura. Mediterumi was a little puzzled after hearing this. But after thinking about the ability of Sakura to absorb other people's chakra and convert it to the holder, she suddenly realized something. Did he absorb the chakra of everyone in the Hoshigaki clan? But what good would it do him? Mediterumi screamed. No. Nanashi shook her head again and said seriously, he didn't absorb the chakra of the Hoshigaki clan's own people, but the chakra of the fourth and the three tails. Hoshigaki Kisame, as Uchiha Obito's right-hand man founding Kirigakure, his position is naturally not just that of a member of the Hoshigaki clan. Regardless of whether the total chakra of all the Hoshigaki clan members can be compared with the tailed beasts, even if Hoshigaki Kisame really attacked his own people, thousands of people lined up for him to absorb with Samehada, which would be enough to overwhelm him. Now, Obito happened to have a three-tailed beast in his hand, and with the ability of the Sharingan to control the tailed beasts, the three-tailed beast had no way to counter Samehada's absorption. It would undoubtedly be more convenient for Hoshigaki Kisame to absorb the chakra of the three-tailed beast than to absorb the numerous Hoshigaki clan ninjas. How is it possible? Mediterumi was extremely shocked. At this moment, a familiar mocking voice came from above the ice wall. Why is it impossible? The people below looked in the direction of the voice, but saw a vortex of emptiness slowly opening above the ice wall, and Uchiha Obito, with scars all over his right face, walked out. This is my last gift to you. Water flooding mist hidden. What do you think? Facing 12 pairs of almost cannibalistic eyes, Obito said to Nanashiro with a sense of contentment. Very good, very good, very good. Nanashuan kept repeating these two words. Obito was even happier when he saw this, because he felt the deep murderous intent and anger contained in those two words. Then, in his surprised eyes, Nanashuan quickly took out a scroll from his pocket. Release. After quickly forming a seal, a grey-white withered skeleton appeared on Nanashuan's scroll. That is. Obito was slightly stunned, and then suddenly thought of something. His face changed, and he was about to rush down to grab it. At this moment, Nanashuan on the ground, picked up a rib, and said to him coldly, I advise you not to move. You should understand that at this distance, it is not a difficult problem for the caster to cancel a spell. Hearing this, Uchiha Obito stopped his steps, and stopped above the ice wall with an ugly face. Noticing the rib in Nanashi's hand, he guessed what she was thinking and explained, although I participated in this matter, the attitude of the Hoshigaki family is the result of all this. You can't blame me alone. Is that really the case? Nanashi sneered, tightened her 5 fingers, and murmured, a person's patience is limited after all. Uchiha Obito. No, Obito's scream came from the ice wall. Nanashi crushed the rib into powder, and then the fine white sand fell to the ground from the gap between her fingers, leaving no trace. Chapter 484 Ambition. Impure world reincarnation only needs a part of the target's biological information. Therefore, Nana Frost could crush a rib in front of Obito without hesitation. This is the first warning, Uchiha Obito. He said to him coldly. You. Seeing Rin's body turned into ashes, but he was helpless, Obito was furious. He never thought that the other party would be so decisive and not give him a chance to defend himself. At the same time, seeing Obito appear, all the sealed ninjas were nervous. The news spread quickly, and everything that happened in the Kizuna family had spread throughout the Kirigakure. Therefore, they all knew that it was this guy with ulterior motives who planned the disaster of Kirigakure. In addition to hatred, everyone also had a deep fear of Uchiha Obito. He almost overturned the entire Kirigakure with his own strength. Such a person is too scary. What is going on? Mediterumi asked Obito angrily. Obito, who was still angry, looked at her and said to Nanashi, don't you know everything? Why don't you guess again? Leaving a rib and collecting the remaining bones, Nanashi said while being on guard, it was you who handed the fourth Hokage to Hoshigaki Kisame, and he used the power of Samehada to absorb a large amount of the Three Tails chakra. So he had the capital to perform such a large-scale water escape. You won't forget the oath you made so quickly? With a crisp sound, he broke the rib in his hand. Uchiha Obito's eyelids jumped when he saw it. Although he had obtained Lin's impure body and didn't care much about Lin's remaining bones, he still felt bad when he saw Lin's bones being ruined like this. Seeing that Nanashi was going to continue breaking, he hurriedly stopped her and said, I haven't forgotten my oath. Although I handed over your fourth Mizukage to Hoshigaki Kisame, I was not the one who implemented the flooding the mist. Nanashi sneered and broke another piece of the broken rib, sarcastically saying, does it make a difference? Don't think I don't know that Hoshigaki Kisame has been recruited by you a long time ago. He is just following your orders. Hearing the sound of the ribs breaking, Obito's heart trembled again, and he forced a smile and said, you are only half right. Oh. Nanashi stopped what he was doing. Obito continued, because of this flooding the mist battle plan, there is also the ambition of the Hoshigaki family in it. This is the battle plan that Hoshigaki Kisame implemented after the approval of the Hoshigaki high-level officials. After saying that, he turned around and looked to the west, where a group of mist ninjas came on the waves and launched a ruthless killing of the people who had just surfaced and were still gasping for breath. Kill Kirigakure clan. What do you want to do? Hahaha, of course I want to kill you, Terumi and Hazuki, and dominate Kirigakure. Only continuous screams were heard, and bright red flowers suddenly bloomed in the deep blue water. Some people saw that the situation was not good and sank to the bottom of the water after taking a deep breath, ready to move, but a group of shark faces with hideous smiles swam in from the bottom of the water. They were naked with shark gills on their cheeks and shoulders, opening and closing, swallowing, and spitting bubbles in the water, like human-shaped sharks, swimming quickly towards the people in the water. Everyone fled frantically, hoping to escape from this area of water. Because, except for the Hazuki clan, no one can fight the Kirigakure clan underwater. Just because normal people cannot breathe underwater, the Kirigakure clan can kill any opponent underwater. In addition to the resistance of deep water itself, whether it is ninjutsu or physical skills, it is not suitable to release them underwater. However, the Hoshigaki clan, who are naturally good at water battles, are like fish in water and have almost no effect. It is no exaggeration to say that the Hoshigaki clan can fight 10 or even 100 people underwater. I saw that group of Hoshigaki ninjas swam quickly from the bottom of the water, and they did not see any intention of attacking. They just dragged all those who tried to escape to the bottom of the water, and then aimed at others. Because compared with the enemy, there are too few ninjas of the Hoshigaki clan. In addition, they have the advantage of breathing in water, so they don't need to waste time and energy fighting with their opponents. They just need to try to interfere with them surfacing to breathe, which is enough to drag everyone down. Even if some of them occasionally surfaced exhausted, they would be killed by their companions on the surface. The Hoshigaki clan is destined to be the final winner of this war. At the same time, Terumi and the ice wall were so shocked by the miserable situation in the water that she almost dispersed the chakra light in her hand. The huge waves were scary, but the casualties would not be too many. But the Hoshigaki clan took advantage of the situation and made trouble, which was undoubtedly adding insult to injury. She had never expected that after Hazuki, Hoshigaki would have the same idea. Moreover, it was now, after everyone was severely injured by the Vulpix. What's more, in this open water battle, except for the Hazuki clan, no one else would have much chance of winning against the Hoshigaki clan. They, the Terumi clan, were afraid of losing. Suddenly, she seemed to remember something, and hurriedly shouted to Nanashiro, where is your ice escape? Can't your ice escape restrain water escape? Hurry up and freeze this boundless water area. On the ice wall, Obito couldn't help but sneer. If it was possible, he would have done it long ago. How could it be your turn to remind him? Why not? Terumi Mei looked back at the young man in white standing quietly in surprise. The waters are too vast. Qishuang shook her head and said bitterly, this water covers an area of nearly 10 kilometers in radius, and the water depth in the middle is even more than 30 meters. Even if my chakra is fully replenished, I can never freeze such a huge area of water. It is true that the ice freezing technique can restrain almost all water escape techniques, but freezing other people's water escape techniques also requires Qishuang's own chakra. In fact, this is just another way of attacking and counteracting the opponent's offensive. Although his ice escape technique has an advantage and does not require the same amount of chakra, if the opponent uses 10 points of water escape technique, he needs to use at least 6 points of ice escape technique to counter it. and with the huge scale of Hoshigaki Kisame's water escape technique, even if the ratio is 10 to 1, he simply does not have so much chakra to consume. Even with the amplification effect of the fairy technique, it is impossible to freeze the entire water area. Rashly freezing the water area is just a waste of chakra. What's more, there is an Uchiha Obito staring at him. Although the other party kept saying that he had not forgotten the oath, that was only based on the fact that the other party could not do anything to him, was worried, and did not dare to take action for the time being. If he wasted the little chakra he had left, giving others a handle, and trying to restrain Obito with the oath, that would be really dangerous. Chapter 485 Waiting. Nana Frost looked at Obito coldly and said, "Now, please leave Kirigakure, otherwise, you should understand what I will do." After that, he raised his hands and made a seal gesture, threatening the other party to cancel the spell. Obito couldn't help but feel nervous when he saw it, and said with a little fear, "I'm just watching the fun, there's no need to be so nervous." He knew that Nana Frost was just threatening him and would not easily cancel the spell, because that would only cause the two sides to completely tear each other apart and make him have no scruples. However, he didn't dare to push Nana Frost too hard. If the other party was really forced by him to cancel the immortality reincarnation, it would be a loss. He had already got Rin, and he didn't want to experience losing again. Knowing that Obito was aiming for the Vulpix, Nana Frost didn't say much, but just spit out a word coldly. "Get out." Seeing this, Obito took a few steps back with an ugly face. At present, the Vulpix has not been successfully sealed, and it is not the time to take action. Staying here will only make things more difficult to deal with, which is not the result he wants. Thinking of this, Obito looked at Nana Qishuang with a complicated look, nodded slightly and said, "Okay, I'll leave now." After that, he left the ice wall in an instant and disappeared. The ceiling ninjas on the ground couldn't help but secretly breathe a sigh of relief when they saw it. At present, the seal has shrunk a little bit, and it will shrink to the extreme in a while, and finally be transferred to the meteorite copper tripod, and it will be completely completed. If it is disturbed and destroyed at this time, it will be too unlucky. Is he really gone? Mediterumi asked Nana Qishuang tentatively, while maintaining the seal. Reason told her that the other party just left temporarily, and waited for the opportunity to attack. Nana Qishuang raised her head, looked at the water above, and said slowly, "He is hiding in the east, at 3 o'clock, 500 meters away." Maybe they didn't know that he had such a strong perception ability in the state of immortalization, and they were standing on the ground that was isolated from the water, with a height difference of nearly 30 meters from the water surface, so they couldn't see the situation on the water surface at all. Obito stood in the water 500 meters away without hiding his whereabouts. Therefore, Nanashiro easily found his whereabouts again. Moreover, he also saw Zetsu, who was in the same group as Obito, but Kakuzu was nowhere to be seen, which made him a little confused. That guy is still determined to do evil. What should we do? Mediterumi's tone became more and more worried. In addition to worrying about the Vulpix, she was also worried about Darumi's base. Although she had sent people back in advance to strengthen the guard, the Hoshigaki clan's flooding the mist move was too unexpected, and the situation in the base would definitely not be too good. Qishuang thought for a moment and said, "The goal of Uchiha Obito should be the remaining Vulpix. If he destroys your sealing process and releases the Vulpix, it will be extremely difficult for him to take it away. So, he should not destroy the sealing process, but will only snatch it after the sealing is successful. However, just in case, I will stay here. You don't have to worry for the time being." Hearing the sound of fighting coming from the water, he looked up and continued, "As for the war outside, let's wait a little longer, until you complete the sealing of the Vulpix." While speaking, several shark-faced people came from the outside of the ice wall, swam around the circular ice wall under the water, and then showed a ferocious smile to Qishuang and the others inside the ice wall. Then, Qishuang saw them take out a stack of detonating talismans, and then densely attach them to the outside of the ice wall. Then, several people hurriedly retreated, pinched the hand seal, and triggered the chakra reserved on the detonating talismans. Bang bang bang. Because it was underwater, the sound waves generated by the explosion were greatly weakened and seemed extremely dull. Even the vibration of the explosion became several times weaker because of the water resistance. After a long series of sparks flashed on the ice wall, countless bubbles floated up. But the Hoshigaki ninjas were dumbfounded because the ice wall did not move at all. After a series of explosions, there was not even a trace left. One of them immediately took out a kunai and prepared to try it himself. A companion next to him hurriedly stopped him and said, "Don't be silly, can your power be stronger than the detonating talisman?" Although the diffusion power of the detonating talisman was limited due to the water resistance, it was after all attached to the ice wall and detonated, and the power directly acting on the ice wall was still a lot, and it would not be affected too much by the water resistance. But even so, there was still no trace left on the ice wall, which was enough to show how hard the ice wall was. Then what should we do? The stopped Hoshigaki ninja was a little unwilling. Another person nearby looked up and said, "Let the people above go in through the entrance of the ice wall, and we'll try from underground." "Okay, I'll go notify them." The Hoshigaki ninja nodded and swam up immediately. The remaining few people dived deeper into the water. Qishuang saw what they were thinking and sneered, "Want to come in? No way." Then, he gathered his chakra in his palm and pressed it on the ground. Ice release, ice sealing technique. I saw the glittering ice crystal spreading from under his palm, and in an instant they covered the entire ground and connected to the circular ice wall. Not only that, the circular ice wall on the top also slowly changed. The part exposed above the water began to change and close in the middle, and finally left no gap, completely sealing the inside of the entire ice wall. When the Hoshigaki style mist ninja on the surface of the water received the notice and prepared to break through from above, they found that the entrance had disappeared. The mist ninjas tried every possible means, such as lightning strikes, fire roasts, swords, and axes, but they were completely useless. They could barely leave a trace on the ice wall. Under the water, a group of Hoshigaki ninjas who tried to dig into the ground encountered the same dilemma. "Forget it, don't waste time here, let's find other targets to attack." The leading Hoshigaki ninja shook his head. They, the Hoshigaki clan, were 1 against 2. Although they had the advantage of terrain, they were few in number after all. It was impossible to completely wipe out Terumi Kizuna, nor was it possible to trap all of them in the water. Therefore, the order given by the young clan leader was to kill as many living forces as possible from the two families. There was no need for them to waste time here on such a hard bone. Everyone agreed with it and swam away in all directions, looking for other targets to attack. On the water surface, Maingetsu Kizuna, who had led his team to ambush around the battlefield and wait for the opportunity to attack, was anxiously leading his troops to withdraw from this area of water. However, the ninjas of the Hoshigaki clan followed closely and soon entangled them. On the surface, Hoshigaki's affiliated ninjas blocked the attack, and under the surface, Hoshigaki's ninjas attacked. Originally, there were some Mizuki ninjas in their team who could offset Hoshigaki's underwater advantage, but Hoshigaki's team came prepared and deliberately prepared a lot of lightning ninjas and lightning ninjutsu scrolls, specifically targeting their water transformation technique. Under the lightning ninjutsu, the water transformation technique was restrained and ineffective, and soon all the Hazuki ninjas in the team were cleared out, leaving only him. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 486 Clay. Without the checks and balances of the Hoshizuki ninja, the underwater Hoshizuki ninja became more and more unscrupulous. Although they were few in number, they just kept harassing people underwater and pulling them into the water without directly hurting anyone. But with the Hoshizuki mist ninja attacking on the surface, their harassment was particularly deadly. Although all ninjas can walk on the waves, as if walking on flat ground, no one knows when a pair of hands will reach out from underwater and suddenly pull them into the water. This sudden change can scare people greatly. In particular, ordinary people cannot breathe in water and have a natural fear of the bottom of the water. Even people who are good at swimming will feel panicked and choke on a few mouthfuls of water when they are suddenly pulled to the bottom of the water. In this case, they still have to face enemy attacks on the surface of the water, so naturally they lose more than they win. Seeing that there are fewer and fewer people under his command, Hoshizuki Maingetsu became more and more anxious. After repelling the enemy in front of him, a mist ninja said to him anxiously, "Master Manayu, you don't have to worry about us, just leave here. Without our burden, they can't stop you at all." In order to cover their retreat, the young clan leader was tied up and exhausted. If it takes a long time, the result is self-evident. No, if I can't even protect you, how can I run the Kid family? Ahem. Kid Manayu immediately rejected his proposal. "Master Manayu, you should leave. Don't worry." Next to him, another mist ninja made a suggestion, but before he finished speaking, a pair of big hands suddenly stretched out from the water and pulled him down. The center of gravity was unbalanced, and he instinctively struggled desperately, and for a moment he was completely at a loss. At this moment, the mist ninja of the Hoshigaki clan not far away seized the opportunity and suddenly shot a few kunai, which were inserted into his neck very accurately. I saw the bright red blood oozing out of the wound, staining his clothes and the surrounding waters red. The man suddenly stopped struggling, and in the eyes of Manu, who was angry and anxious, he sank into the water in despair and powerlessness. "Arsehole!" Manu shouted angrily, and the arm holding the sewing needle suddenly swelled up. That was because he used the great water arm technique to increase his arm strength. Whoosh! He suddenly threw the sewing needle in his hand at the mist ninja who killed his subordinate. Seeing a silver light flashing in the air, guessing that Manu used a throwing weapon such as shuriken, the man subconsciously raised his arms to block. Puff! He suddenly felt a chill on his arm, and there was a tingling sensation in his eyebrows, as if something pierced his brain. Then, his consciousness fell into chaos, and he fell to the surface of the water with a thud, and slowly sank. Kill. The three companions next to him looked at each other, and immediately formed an array, and rushed towards Manu, looking for death. Manu, who was still angry, hooked his finger, and immediately a thin silver line was broken by him. That was the wire of the sewing needle. The wire of the sewing needle was originally thin and difficult to detect. In this melee, it was even more difficult to defend against. He didn't see much movement, and the wire connected to the other end of the sewing needle swayed slightly in the air, and was easily put on the necks of the three people. The three people who were sprinting quickly had no defense at all. When the wire was wrapped around their necks, they didn't notice it. Unfortunately, it was too late. Before they could stop, the steel wire easily cut their necks under the huge inertia of their bodies. The remaining consciousness in their brains could only see their headless bodies spurting blood. After running forward 2 steps, they fell on the water in vain and slowly sank into the water. Whoosh! Gui Deng Manu pulled the wire again, and immediately a silver light shot back from the water. Only a sound of breaking through the air was heard, and a weapon like a large sewing needle returned to his hand. Seeing that he was difficult to deal with, several nearby mist ninjas from the Hoshigaki clan shouted loudly, "Where is the lightning ninja? Maingetsu Kizuki is here." As long as there is a lightning ninjutsu, the liquefied body of the Maingetsu family will be completely paralyzed. Even a strong man like Maingetsu Kizuki can be easily killed by them. Immediately, a lightning ninja rushed over while making a seal. Lightning ninjutsu, ground walk. Seeing the target enter his attack range, the man immediately released the lightning ninjutsu he had prepared. Buarks jumped on his hands, and then turned into 2 lightning snakes, which jumped from his arms into the water, and swam over at a rapid speed. "Humph! You're looking for death." Maingetsu Kizuki snorted coldly and immediately rushed up to meet the lightning snakes. He was extremely fast, as if gliding on the water, and in the blink of an eye he encountered the lightning snakes swimming on the water. Zzz. The lightning snakes coiled up from his feet and traveled all over his body, but the mist ninja of Hoshigaki's clan did not see the expected ending of Maingetsu's liquefied body failing and paralyzed into a pool of mucus. This is impossible. Impossible. How could a lightning release be ineffective? The man stood there in a daze and suddenly lost his mind. The water transformation technique of the Maingetsu family is afraid of lightning release, which is an open secret in the entire mist village. Even just now, he used lightning release to easily kill a member of the Maingetsu clan. Who knew that this countermeasure would fail on Maingetsu? At this moment, main Jetsu, whose speed did not decrease at all, passed through the obstruction of the lightning snakes and arrived in front of the lightning release ninja in the blink of an eye. You ignorant fool, do you think that after knowing that the water transformation technique is restrained by the lightning release technique, we, the Hazuki family, will still be so foolish as to ignore this flaw? A cold mocking voice came from his ear. He saw a silver light flashing in Hazuki Manayu's hand and subconsciously wanted to dodge. However, a master of swordsmanship like Hazuki Manayu's close range attack speed is extremely fast, and ordinary people have no chance to dodge at all. The lightning release ninja suddenly felt a chill in his throat, as if something was gushing out. Looking closely again, he found that it was blood gushing out. In just a moment, he was pierced by Hazuki Manayu's sewing needle in the aorta of his neck. He instinctively covered the wound with his hand, but he couldn't stop the gushing blood at all. He could only feel his life slipping away from his fingers in despair, and slowly collapsed on the water. Looking at the fallen lightning release ninja, Manayu sighed. Lightning release is indeed the nemesis of their family's water transformation technique, but this problem had been solved as early as when the second generation was in power. Oil is the way the second generation solves the lightning escape. Because oil is not conductive, just attach a layer of oil film on the surface of the liquefied body to isolate lightning, and completely solve the flaw of being restrained by lightning escape. Then, based on the use of oil, the second generation developed a series of water-oil mixed water escape secrets, such as oil sliding steps and violent danger steaming power. Everyone only thinks that the second generation uses oil to develop stronger tricks. In fact, it is not. Only their Gui Deng family has secret records. The second generation used oil to make up for the defects of the water transformation technique. When their liquefied bodies have the characteristics of oil, they are no longer afraid of lightning escape, and even immune to lightning escape, and in turn, become the nemesis of lightning escape. The flaw of lightning escape is too obvious. If the second generation of Mizukage has such a flaw, he will not be able to sit on the position of Mizukage, because there is a lightning sword among the 7 ninja swords. The second generation of Tsuchikage only needs to prepare more lightning escape scrolls to kill the second generation of Mizukage, and they will not perish together. Chapter 487, Floating Ice, Part 1. Unfortunately, not everyone is qualified to learn the secret techniques left by the second generation. There are less than 10 people in the entire Kazuki family who are qualified to learn those secret techniques. And because these secret techniques involve a very high level of water escape, which requires learners to have a very high talent for water escape, no one in the Kazuki family has successfully practiced since the second generation. Originally, Kizuki Maingetsu was not very interested in ninjutsu. He only liked sword techniques, but after the battle for the Mizukage, he deeply realized that no matter how strong the sword technique was, it had its own limitations, and could not allow him to truly defeat everyone. It was at that time that he had the idea of studying ninjutsu. But what really made him make up his mind was the night of Kaguya's rebellion. That night, he encountered Konoha's Orochimaru, and only one lightning escape made him look humiliated, and almost fell into the hands of the other party. So far, he has learned from his mistakes, and is determined to practice the secret techniques left by the second generation, to make up for the shortcomings of the water transformation technique. At the beginning, Masamune Kizuki and others were not optimistic about his practice of the second generation secret technique, because swordsmanship, which belongs to the category of physical skills, has nothing to do with ninjutsu. They are two completely different fields. A strong talent in swordsmanship does not mean a strong talent in ninjutsu. But the result surprised everyone in the Kizuki family. After several years of hard training, Kizuki Maingetsu really mastered all the secret techniques left by the second generation. He completely made up for his own shortcomings, and was no longer afraid of lightning escape. At the same time, seeing that lightning escape was ineffective against Kizuki Maingetsu, several Hoshigaki ninjas around were frightened and retreated. They dared to face Kizuki Maingetsu directly, only based on the restraining effect of lightning escape on the water transformation technique. The ineffectiveness of lightning escape meant that they would face a terrifying and powerful enemy. What are you afraid of? He is only one person, and we have so many people. Let's go together. Seeing his companions showing fear, someone bravely shouted, "Kill." After some hesitation, everyone surrounded him again. Unfortunately, in order to take care of his subordinates, Manzuki Kizuki couldn't move his hands and feet at all. Facing the siege of many mist ninjas, he was a little overwhelmed for a while. Inside the ice wall, the ceiling light curtain has shrunk to the size of millstone. With a little more time, it will be completely completed. But hearing the fighting outside, Terumi Mei couldn't calm down. She shouted to Nana Frost worriedly, "You should think of a way to help them." Nana Frost shook her head slightly and whispered, "Uchiha Obito's target is the Vulpix. I can't leave easily. Then you can't just watch them being slaughtered by the Hoshigaki clan." Terumi Mei's tone became more and more anxious. Nana Frost thought for a while and said, "Well, I'll help them right away. As for whether they can survive, it depends on themselves." After that, he quickly formed a set of hand seals, and the chakra turned into cold air and seeped out of his body. Ice release. Ice clone technique. The cold air entangled and condensed, and quickly condensed into an ice clone. "Thank you for your help, buddy." Qishuang nodded to his clone. "You are me, and I'm you. No need to thank me." The clone waved his hand nonchalantly, and then slowly sank into the ice layer under his feet and disappeared. Before he finished speaking, Qishuang also disappeared from the spot. He used the ice escape method to teleport to the top of the ice wall, the water surface. At this time, everyone on the water surface was in a bitter battle. The Hoshigaki family had gained the upper hand with the underwater and surface attack tactics. Qishuang exhaled a long breath of turbid air, and then divided a part of his remaining chakra, quickly formed a set of hand seals, and pressed his palm on the water surface. Ice escape frozen technique. A layer of crystal ice crystals condensed under his palm and spread rapidly around. In a few breaths, a water body with a radius of more than 1,000 meters and a depth of nearly 1 foot was frozen by him at once, turning into a slightly red floating ice area. There were even a few unlucky Hoshigaki ninjas who were just surfacing and preparing to drag people into the water, but they were caught off guard and frozen in his domain. However, in addition to Hoshigaki ninjas being frozen, Terumi Hazumi, who was dragged into the water and was about to surface, was also frozen. Nana Shuang had already anticipated such a consequence, but he had no choice. This large-scale technique was an indiscriminate attack. Even the Six Paths regeneration could not carefully identify his own people and enemies when performing a large-scale technique, and accurately control every bit of power to freeze the enemy and avoid his own people. In order to save more of his own people, he could only decisively give up the few scattered people. This was also an extremely helpless choice. Originally, with his ability, freezing a radius of 100 meters was almost the limit, but under the amplification of the fairy technique, his ability had broken through the limit of 100 meters. It is even possible to freeze 10,000 meters. However, the larger the scale of the technique, the greater the consumption of chakra. At the moment, he couldn't waste his chakra in vain, and he had to guard against the covetous Obito. He could only squeeze out limited chakra, freezing 1 foot and 1,000 meters in radius. Although the floating ice area he created was pitifully small compared to the 10-kilometer circle water area, such a small floating ice area was enough to affect the balance of the current battle. Then, he shouted loudly to everyone, "Everyone, retreat to the floating ice." With this floating ice area, everyone can completely reverse the underwater advantage of the Hoshigaki clan, and no longer have to worry about a pair of hands dragging them under the water at any time. Hearing his shout, the mist ninja of Terumi's line retreated while fighting, and immediately stepped onto the floating ice and approached him. The underwater Hoshigaki ninjas saw it, and immediately started to destroy the floating ice area, but they used all their strength, and only left a few invisible scratches. Not long after, all the mist ninja of Terumi's line nearby retreated to the floating ice, completely getting rid of the underwater threat. However, during the retreat, many bodies were left on the water. Although the water forces of Hoshigaki followed closely and boarded the floating ice, without the threat of underwater at any time, everyone felt relieved and was more relaxed in dealing with the enemy. On the other side, the mist ninjas of the Hazuki family were very envious, but the Terumi family, where Nana Shuang was located, was their enemy, and the young patriarch of the Hazuki family, who had the highest status, did not speak, so they did not dare to board the floating ice rashly. But because the Terumi family retreated to the floating ice, the underwater Hoshigaki ninjas lost their target and naturally shifted their target to the Hazuki family. For a time, the casualties of the Hazuki family increased sharply, and even with the care of the Hazuki full moon, they were still powerless. After all, he only had one person and one pair of hands and could save one or two people, but not everyone. In addition, the waters were wide, and it was unknown how long it would take to lead the troops to withdraw from this area of water. Judging from the current rate of casualties, I'm afraid that before he can lead his men out of the waters, all his men will die. Thinking of this, he looked at the floating ice field not far away and couldn't help but hesitate. At this moment, a familiar voice came from the center of the floating ice field. "What are you still hesitating about, Kizuna Mainjetsu? In terms of area, the 7 frosts can indeed freeze the entire surface of the water, but don't forget that there is also a problem of water depth. Calculate the difference between freezing 1 foot and 30 meters of water, so don't ask if you can freeze the damn water directly." Chapter 488, Floating Ice, Part 2. Hearing this roar, Manu Hazuka's heart shuddered, and he immediately made a decision. "Everyone listen, all move to the floating ice." He gave the order loudly. Hearing this, the Hazuki ninjas, who were already tempted, all breathed a sigh of relief. While resisting the enemy, they moved closer to the floating ice area not far away, and prepared to land. They were afraid that Manu Hazuki would not be able to lose face and refuse the other party's kindness, so they were ready to bite the bullet and lead them to force a breakthrough and leave this area of water. At this moment, the area of nearly 10 kilometers was all vast water, and land could only be seen 10 kilometers away, and that piece of floating ice area was only a few hundred meters away from them. Giving up the near and seeking the far is definitely the worst choice. On the other side, Qishuang stood in the center of the floating ice area and called out to the ninjas who had landed. "Everyone listen, all move to the west and empty the eastern area." Although everyone had some complaints about his choice to rescue the Hazuki ninjas, it was not the time to worry about these things. In addition, he was so powerful that no one dared to disobey him, so they fought and retreated obediently, leaving the floating ice area in the east empty. Hoshigaki's ninjas immediately took advantage of the opportunity and boarded the floating ice area, looking for death. Nanashiro used an ice escape to instantly reach the floating ice area in the east and broke into the crowd. Ice escape, ice freezing technique. At this moment, all the nearby Terumi ninjas had evacuated, and he was surrounded by Hoshigaka's ninjas. He could launch a large-scale attack without any scruples. He stomped his foot lightly, and an invisible ripple seemed to pass through the ice surface, and a layer of crystal ice climbed up the feet of the ninjas within a radius of dozens of meters. My feet are frozen. My feet are frozen too." Everyone screamed and struggled desperately, but they could not pull their feet off the ice. What frightened them even more was that the layer of glittering ice crystals showed no signs of stopping after freezing their feet and continued to spread to their thighs, waists, and heads at an extremely fast speed. In just a few breaths, the ninjas in the area of dozens of meters in radius turned into a group of silent human-shaped ice sculptures. The ninjas of Hoshigaki's clan who were not affected nearby were horrified and scared to death. "It's him. It's Ice Release 7 Frost." Someone recognized him at a glance and shouted in surprise. A man who could suppress the Vulpix by himself. The entire Kirigakure remembered his name. Hearing their companions call out the identity of the person who came, the Kirigakure ninjas became even more frightened and could not help but take a few steps back. No one was willing to fight this terrifying man. Seeing his subordinates showing fear, a leading mist ninja immediately encouraged them. "Don't be afraid. He is only one person. He is not a tailed beast. He does not have as much chakra as the tailed beasts to consume. As long as everyone works together, we will definitely be able to use up his chakra." Then, the anxious mist ninjas calmed down. "Don't be afraid. As long as everyone approaches the ninjas of Terumi's school and pulls them into the battle, there is no need to worry about him using large-scale ninjutsu again." At this time, another mist ninja of Hoshigaki's school reminded loudly. Hearing this, Nanashi's face immediately darkened. It was precisely because there were no people of his own in the eastern area that he dared to let go and act. If the ninjas of Hashigake's school and Terumi's school were in a melee, he would be afraid to use large-scale attacks. Encouraged, the ninjas of Hashigake's school once again aroused their fighting spirit. While continuing to approach the ninjas of Terumi's school on the other side, they projected a large number of ninja tools to attack Nanashi. Without wasting chakra to block the blow, Qishuang instantly teleported to a further back position through the ice layer. The large black rain of ninja tools fell into the air, making clanging sounds when hitting the ice. After dodging a round of attacks and quickly turning his fingers to seal, Qishuang stomped his foot again. Ice release. Rain of needles on the flat ice surface with a radius of nearly 100 meters. Like bamboo shoots after rain, 3-foot-long ice needles grew out. Go. Thinking in his mind, he controlled the large ice needles on the ice surface to eject. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Like thousands of arrows fired at the same time, countless ice needles formed a dense offensive and were thrown at the Hashigaki ninja not far away. Be careful to defend. Someone shouted and sprayed a torrent of water on his head, ready to attack instead of defend. Unfortunately, not everyone has the same reaction speed as him. Puff puff puff. Clang clang clang. Some people use their weapons to block the ice needles, while others did not. Those who were luckier only suffered some minor injuries, but the coldness of the ice needles still froze them. Those who were less lucky died on the spot. After all, the 3-foot-long ice needles inserted into the body are not injuries that everyone can bear. At this time, the Hazuki ninjas who came from the other side of the water also killed the Hashigaki ninjas who were preparing to land from the east. With Hazuki main Jetsu leading the way, the entire army was like a sharp knife inserted into the Hashigaki ninja formation, and for a time they were invincible and unstoppable. Supported by the desire to survive, the Hazuki ninjas killed through the Hashigaki ninja formation in less than 10 minutes, and completely boarded the eastern floating ice area reserved for them by Nana Frost, completely eliminating the threat under the water. It was only because of Hazuki main Jetsu's hesitation that they boarded the floating ice later, and the casualties were more serious than those of Terumi's ninjas. The original surprise attack team of 500 people now only has less than half of them. Even those who are still alive are all injured and miserable. As for Hashigake's faction, they have the advantage of terrain due to the harassment and cooperation of the underwater Hashigaki ninja, and they are not very dead or injured. In general, at this time, even if they lose the advantage of terrain due to the floating ice, they still have an absolute advantage. The ninjas of both Hashigaki Terumi and Hashigaki Terumi were all forced onto the floating ice by them. It is only a matter of time before they are completely wiped out. Outside the floating ice area, Abato, who has been watching the excitement, said to White Zetsu, "It's almost time. Let Kisame come over to help contain that guy. I'm going to make a move." Hearing this, White Zetsu grinned and said, "No problem." Then, he contacted the clone closest to Hashigaki Kisame through telepathy. After crossing the battlefield, he found Hashigaki Kisame who was helping Hashigaki Kiichi attack the Hazuki headquarters. The White Zetsu clone said, "Kisame, Obito asked you to go over and help contain the guy called Nanashiro." "No problem, I'll follow the orders of the Mizukage-sama." Shaking off the blood and meat on Sumehada and carrying it on his shoulders, Kisame grinned and revealed a confident smile. Then, he looked at the young clan leader who was supervising the battle at the edge of the battlefield and shouted, "Goodbye, Master Kiichi. Today, this will be my last contribution to the Hashigaki family. From now on, I will no longer owe the Hashigaki family anything." He took a look at the large number of corpses floating on the water and slowly formed a set of hand seals. Water style, Mizusame bullet technique. He spit out a stream of blue water to wrap himself in it, and then the stream turned into a shark. He slapped his tail on the water surface and suddenly flew into the air, gliding away with the wind. Hey, everyone, why don't you guess what the ending of Hashigaki Kisame will be? Chapter 489, Choice. You. Kiichi Hashigaki, who was supervising the battle outside, was confused. But before he could ask, the blue shark-shaped water bullet had already carried Kisame Hashigaki far away. What the hell is this bastard doing again? Seeing him go away, he couldn't help but curse. Earlier, that guy didn't listen to orders and created a flood in advance without authorization, forcing him to temporarily stop transferring the rear personnel and launch an attack immediately. If the transfer of the rear personnel delayed the opportunity to fight and gave Terumi and Kizuki some breathing space, then all his arrangements would be ruined. The strength of the Hoshigaki clan is about the same as that of Terumi's clan, and is much worse than Kizuki's clan. Only by taking advantage of the geographical advantage of water flooding mist hidden, can they have the possibility of defeating these two families. Among these two families, Kizuki's direct line is also good at water battles, and is their number one enemy. For this reason, he decided to kill Kizuki first, and deliberately prepared a lot of lightning ninjas to lead the team to attack in person. Terumi only sent a small force to harass and contain the enemy. As long as they could deal with the Hazuki family, who were also good at water battles, Terumi's clan would only be prey to the sharks in the water. But Hoshigaki Kisame was so unreliable that he actually fled when he saw that the defense line of the Hazuki clan was about to be breached. Without such a high-level fighter, the time for them to completely defeat Hazuki would definitely be delayed. On the other hand, due to the sudden attack of the Hoshigaki clan ninjas, Terumi and Hazuki suffered heavy losses. Although they boarded the floating ice field created by Nanashi, they wiped out the advantage of the Hoshigaki clan in the water, but at this time they no longer had an advantage in numbers, so they were overwhelmed by the offensive of the Hoshigaki clan. At this moment, the panting Hazuki Maingetsu fell beside Nanashi. He was covered in blood and his hands were covered in blood. There were red blood beads on the tip of the needle. I don't know how many people he killed. Why didn't you take action? Ahem. Manu sat down, leaning on the thin blade of the sewing needle, and asked breathlessly. Looking at the three ninjas who fell one after another, Qishuang said helplessly, I'm guarding against one person. Uchiha Obito? Manu immediately thought of a target. Yes, that's him. Qishuang nodded. The seal of the six-tailed beast is about to be completed. But the more at this time, the more he needs to be alert and guard against Uchiha Obito's attack. After all, with the opponent's ability to move in time and space, it only takes a few seconds to take away the six-tailed beast. However, seeing the ninjas of Terumi's school fall one after another, he felt uncomfortable after all. How have you considered my proposal? Looking at Manu next to him, Qishuang asked again solemnly. If he still can't get the answer he wants this time, then he can only be cruel and kill him. The Kirigakure has experienced repeated destruction from wars and tailed beasts, and the total number of ninjas has dropped by at least 7 levels. It can no longer withstand the destruction of war. If the Hazuki clan is still unwilling to sit down and talk, then they can only be completely wiped out from Kirigakure, including the Hoshigaki clan, which is now in the limelight. Hearing this, Hazuki Maingetsu smiled bitterly and turned back and said, do I have a second choice? Because of the Hoshigaki clan's flooding Kirigakure, the Hazuki clan's last-ditch plan was completely ruined. Many higher-level officials who were originally interested in peace talks are definitely more unwilling to continue the war. Whether from the perspective of public opinion or from their own actual situation, there is no need for Hazuki to continue fighting. The Hazuki family was defeated after all. They can only choose to negotiate. At this time, a shark-shaped water bomb fell from the sky and hit the floating ice field heavily, knocking dozens of Kirigakure ninjas around. Another troublesome guy is coming. Looking at the shark-faced man who walked out of the shark-shaped water bomb, Qishuang sighed helplessly. Hoshigaki Kisame, Maingetsu Hazuki, who was sitting on the ice, frowned slightly. He also recognized the other party's identity by the big sword Samehada on his shoulder. At the same time, seeing Hoshigaki ninja, who had been hiding at the bottom of the water, board the floating ice, the ninjas of Terumi Hazuki's school tacitly threw a large number of ninja tools. Earlier on the water, they were tormented by this group of shark faces. Now that they saw them out of the water, they were unwilling to let them go easily. They must chop them into meat paste. Unfortunately, they picked the wrong target. As the new owner of the big sword Samehada, the person who can be favored by Uchiha Obito is naturally not comparable to ordinary Hoshigaki ninja. Hoshigaki Kisame used the wide blade of Samehada to easily knock all the ninja tools shot to the ground without any damage. 2 other ninjas used water escape and lightning escape attacks respectively, but they were easily blocked by Samehada's chakra. Why? No one came to greet me. These bastards can't stop me at all. Kisame used Samehada to knock away a mist ninja who rushed up and smiled triumphantly at the center of the floating ice area. Hearing this, Kisame Maingetsu looked at Nanako in surprise and said playfully, "It seems that his target is you." He knew very well that Ashigaki Kisame's eyes were not on him. Nanako said helplessly, "He has been recruited by Uchiha Obito. He should be here to deliberately delay me and create an opportunity for him to snatch the Vulpix." As he was speaking, Ashigaki Kisame wielded Samehada and started killing in the crowd. The blade covered with barbs gently brushed the body of the besieger, leaving a bloody scar. The injured screamed in pain and struggled on the ice. As if to force him to take action, Ashigaki Kisame rarely killed people directly. Most of the time, he would severely injure people and let them wail in pain. In a few minutes, dozens of people were lying on the ground. "Do you still remember that you once told me that, as long as the war ended, you would help me find Sujetsu? Ahem." On the ice, Maingetsu Hazuki, whose breathing gradually stabilized, stood up. His eyes were fixed on the tall figure wielding Samehada. "Yes, I did." Nanashi nodded. "Now, is this promise still valid?" Using chakra to attach the stitches to his back, Maingetsu Hazuki took out another scroll. "Yes." Nanashi nodded again. Opening the scroll and quickly forming a seal, Maingetsu Hazuki took out a large sword embedded with a scroll from the scroll. Well, that shark face can be regarded as my sincerity in choosing to cease fire. After saying that, he put away the scroll, grabbed the handle of the explosive blade foam, and slid out of the ice at a very fast speed. "Be careful of that Samehada. You can only fight him with swordsmanship, never fight him with ninjutsu." Ninashiro, who was surprised and happy, looked at his back as he left, and hurriedly reminded him loudly. But Maingetsu Kizuki did not reply, but just turned his back to him, waved his hand calmly, and floated away. Chapter 490 Kisame, Part 1. If possible, Nanashi also wanted to learn the methods of the tailless tailed beast, but now that the seal of the six-tailed beast was about to succeed, he did not dare to leave rashly. But he could not bear to let Ashigaki Kisame go on a killing spree in the crowd. With Maingetsu Kizuki helping to contain him, he could breathe a sigh of relief. At the same time, seeing that the target who should have appeared did not come, but Maingetsu Kizuki, the sick ghost, rushed over, Ashigaki Kisame could not help but feel a little disappointed. Well, let me see how capable this ninja sword genius is. Looking at the person who came, he showed a confident smile. When he was young, he often heard the village talking about this genius who could freely control the ninja sword. At that time, Maingetsu Kizuki was undoubtedly the brightest star among their group of young people. Everyone was amazed, envious, and jealous. After all, that was a genius who was only one step away from becoming the Mizukage. Until so many years later, they have grown up and become the backbone of the Kirigakure, and Kisame still has not forgotten that brightest star. Especially after getting Samehada, Kisame found that Samehada's ability complemented his own and was a perfect match. With this sword, he defeated all the unscrupulous people who tried to compete for Samehada, and Ashigaki Kisame became a well-deserved ninja swordsman. Feeling that his strength had greatly increased, he naturally focused his attention on this genius, who could also control Samehada. Therefore, he helped Ashigaki Kiichi attack the Hazuki station. In addition to the idea of repaying the Ashigaki family, he also wanted to take the opportunity to challenge Hazuki Manayu. However, Hazuki Manayu was not in the Hazuki station at that time, which made him run in vain. Now, meeting here again, it is worth the trip. Water style, great water arm technique. Seeing that the distance between the two was less than 5 meters, Hazuki Manayu pinched the seal with his left hand and poured chakra into his right hand. Immediately, his right arm was like a blown up balloon, expanding 2 or 3 times. Then he suddenly accelerated and got close to Ashigaki Kisame, aiming at his head with a knife. "Come on." Kisame, who was well prepared, immediately lifted the Samehada in his hand. Boom. Fimo and Samehada collided with each other, and the dull sound of the collision made people's scalps numb. Ashigaki Kisame, who was fighting back, also put away his smile the moment the 2 knives touched, because a terrifying force came from Fimo's knife, almost making him unable to hold the handle. Bang! Although the handle did not fall out of his hand, under the huge force from Fimo, Samehada was bent back and hit him in the chest. Whoosh! Kisame was immediately chopped away by Hazuki Manayu's knife and flew directly out of the floating ice area and fell on the water. Wow. After rolling on the water for several times, he finally stabilized his body. Is this the water arm technique of the Hazuki family? It's really interesting. Looking at Hazuki Maingetsu, who rushed over again, Hoshigaki Kisame wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. As a big family in the Hidden Mist village, Hoshigaki naturally had a lot of records about Hazuki, and this water arm technique that increases arm strength is also among them. Originally thought, even if Hazuki Maingetsu used this move, the power that can be increased is very limited, but I didn't expect it to be so strong. You know, his physique is extremely strong. Even among many ninjas, he is also a representative of the power type. Combined with the huge Samehada, it is difficult for ordinary people to catch his sword. But even so, his strength is still not as good as the thin and sick ghost in front of him, and he was smashed by 2 ribs and injured his internal organs. It's incredible. Fortunately, he used Samehada to absorb a lot of chakra from the three-tailed, and it has not been completely used up at this moment, so it can be used to heal his wounds. Then, he communicated with Samehada's will, and ordered it to use chakra to heal himself. Immediately, a warm energy was injected into his palm from the end of the hilt, and then went to his chest through his arm, quickly repairing his broken ribs and injured internal organs. At the same time, seeing Maingetsu Hazuki take over the big trouble of Hoshigaki Kisame, the ninjas on the floating ice also wisely changed their targets, and did not dare to go up to seek death. On the water, Uchiha Obito, who had originally hoped that Hoshigaki Kisame would hold Nanoshino, could not help but frown slightly. Maingetsu Hazuki and Hoshigaki Kisame fought together, which was not the result he wanted to see. Now, what are you going to do? Black Zetsu said desperately. Obito thought for a while, put his hand on his shoulder, and whispered, "Catch my chakra." Then, Black Zetsu felt a stream of chakra injected into his body from Obito's palm. At the same time, he also understood Obito's plan. On the other side, Maingetsu Hazuki picked up Fimo and followed him out of the floating ice area. Knowing that long-range ninjutsu attacks would be absorbed by Samehada's chakra, he did not waste energy using ninjutsu and prepared to close in on the swordsmanship to decide the outcome. On the other hand, knowing that the water transformation technique of the Kizuna family could be gathered and dispersed by the heart, and the effect of ninjutsu attacks would be very poor, Hoshigaki Kisame also did not choose to use ninjutsu attacks. After treating his injuries, he carried Samehada to meet him. With Samehada's ability to absorb chakra, it only takes a few cuts for the opponent's liquefied body to become completely ineffective due to the exhaustion of chakra. Therefore, using swordsmanship to fight the enemy is the best way. Ding. The sound of Fimo and Samehada colliding came again. But this time, Manu did not use the great water arm technique, and his strength was not as good as Kisame, and he was immediately knocked back several steps. However, when Kisame saw the floor and was about to chop with a knife with great interest, he missed. Then, a figure flashed by on the right side, and with a cold voice, a large sword inlaid with scrolls slashed over. "You are stronger than me, and you are very suitable for using clumsy weapons like Samehada, but this also means that your speed will be a weakness. You are not as fast as me. Even if you find my flaw, you can't keep up with my speed." Ahem. Ding. Kisame hastily blocked the oncoming knife. Just as he was about to counterattack, the opponent withdrew again, without any intention of wrestling with him. This slowed down his movements, and Hoshigaki Kisame, who had no place to use his strength, was a little angry. Hazuki Maingetsu was thin and agile, and with the help of Oily Slide, his movement speed was extremely fast. Kisame had no chance to keep up with the speed. For a while, facing his attack, Hoshigaki Kisame had only the strength to parry and had no ability to fight back. After blocking 7 or 8 knives, Kisame was left with 4 or 5 shallow wounds. There were even a few marks of burns from the explosion. They were caused by the explosion of explosive blade flying foam. "Your swordsmanship is too poor, much worse than that old fellow, the pufferfish demon of Zaguishan. You still need to practice hard." Ahem. Manu slashed again from the side and commented bluntly. He had fought with both Samehada holders and was fully qualified to comment on their strengths. Hoshigaki Kisame was beaten by him without any chance to fight back, not only because he couldn't keep up with the speed, but also because of the gap in swordsmanship skills. Compared with the former pufferfish demon, Kisame is still far behind. However, this may be because the other party has been in charge of Sumehada for too short a time. As far as he knows, the other party has only been a ninja swordsman for more than a year, so his swordsmanship skills are naturally not comparable to the pufferfish demon, who has been a ninja swordsman for many years. The market is open. Guess whether Manu Hoshigaki will win, or Hoshigaki Kisame will win? Chapter 491 locked. So what? Using the broad blade of Sumehada to block the blow, Hoshigaki Kisame laughed contemptuously. As the young patriarch of the Hazuka family, you can freely control Sumehada. You should understand. The power of Sumehada does not require swordsmanship to be exerted. After saying that, he rudely lifted Sumehada out and immediately threw Manu out. Hearing this, Manu suddenly felt an ominous feeling in his heart. Just as he stood firm and prepared to launch another quick attack, he saw Hoshigaki Kisame holding Sumehada and quickly sinking to the bottom of the water, and the other party's wanton laughter was still echoing in the air. Sharks have never been predators on land. The water is the hunting ground for sharks. Although the water was dyed red by the blood of everyone, you could still see the smug smile under the water that was sinking rapidly. This is a big trouble. He sighed helplessly, absorbed the droplets onto his back, and replaced the stitches with his hands. As a family of swordsmen, the Kizuna family knows the effectiveness of the 7 ninja swords better than anyone else. In addition to the ability to absorb chakra, Sumehada also has the ability to become one with the sword. The so-called becoming one with the sword does not refer to the highest level of swordsmanship, but to the fact that Sumehada can really merge with the holder and become a half-human half-fish monster. In this special state of half-human, half-fish, the ninja swordsman will gain the ability to breathe in water and the flexibility to move like a swimming fish. And inheriting Sumehada's ability to absorb chakra, they can absorb the opponent's chakra through physical contact alone, completely getting rid of the shackles of swordsmanship, and no longer need swordsmanship skills. Therefore, their combat capabilities will be explosively improved underwater. The reason why the pufferfish demon didn't use this ability during the last battle for the Mizukage was because of the lack of favorable geographical environment. The half-human half-fish form was not as good as using swordsmanship to control Sumehada on land. But now, in this water area of nearly 10 kilometers in radius and nearly 30 meters deep, the combat effectiveness of the Sumehada holder will undoubtedly be greatly improved by using this half-human half-fish ability. In addition, Hoshigaki Kisame belongs to the Hoshigaki clan, which is different from ordinary people. He already has a strong ability in water combat. Combined with Sumehada's ability of man and sword as one, I'm afraid that things will become more difficult. Although with the water transformation technique, the Kizuna clan also has a strong ability in water combat, but it is only equivalent to ordinary Hoshigaki ninjas, and it is definitely not comparable to Hoshigaki Kisame who uses man and sword as one. Thinking of this, he frowned secretly and said, I'd better not go into the water easily. I'll just wait for him to come up on the surface of the water. On the surface of the water, he was absolutely sure to take down Hoshigaki Kisame, but if he went into the water, it would be extremely disadvantageous to him. At the same time, the Sumehada on Kisame's right hand underwater was trembling with excitement, and the long handle was like a flexible little tail, tightly wrapped around Kisame's right arm. As the barbs on the blade trembled rhythmically, Sumehada and Kisame were like 2 crystal water drops, gradually merging into one, no longer distinguishable from each other. I saw a triangular fin growing on each of his arms, and his head was completely deformed, turning into a protruding shark head, and a long dorsal fin spread out from the back of his head, which was obviously born to reduce water resistance. Manzuki Hazuki on the surface of the water felt very painful when he saw it. It was a killing machine in the water. He originally thought that, after entering the water, even if he was not the opponent, he should have a 40% chance of winning. However, after seeing the opponent's final form, he completely lost the idea of entering the water to fight him. Even if he thought with his toes, he could understand that once he entered the water, the offensive and defensive situation between them would be completely reversed. Underwater, looking at the full moon on the water, Hoshigaki Kisame showed a smug smile. Do you think that I can't do anything to you if you don't enter the water? This is my hunting ground. Everything is up to me. After saying that, He put his hands together, used his mental power to connect the chakra in the water, and quickly brought the entire area of nearly 10 kilometers under his control. Although this vast area of water was created by him using the Great Explosion water wave, it was specially used to cooperate with the Hoshigaki family's water flooding mist hidden tactics. But this technique can also cooperate with Samehuda's ability of Man and Sword as one. In the state of Man and Sword as one, he can completely control the waters of nearly 10 kilometers in radius, turning it into his exclusive hunting ground. An oversized water prison. It was just that there was no need before, so he did not deliberately take it under control, but he was no match for Manzuki Kizuki on the water surface, so he could only perform this next change. Water style, water prison. Same dots at this moment. The entire water area was completely controlled with him as the center. At the same time, Manzuki Kizuki on the water surface could not help but feel a palpitation. He felt that the waters under his feet had undergone an unknown change, but he could not tell what it was. He just felt a little dangerous. Water prison, open. Underwater, Kisame made seals with both hands, controlling the waters, and in just a moment, split it under Manzuki Kizuki's feet. A crack about 10 meters wide and nearly 100 meters long opened. What? Manzuki Kizuki did not expect such a change to happen under his feet at all, and he immediately fell down. Water prison, close. Underwater, Kisame grinned and controlled the waters to close. Boom. Under Manu's astonished eyes, the water walls of more than 20 meters high on both sides suddenly closed together and came with unimaginable terrifying power, crushing him to pieces in just a moment. Fortunately, his liquefied body was not afraid of such a heavy blow, and it returned to its original state in a moment. If it were an ordinary person, even if he didn't die from this attack, he would be seriously injured. Looking up again, the sky above his head disappeared, replaced by endless deep water. Then, a playful voice came from not far away. Are you ready to be hunted by sharks? The genius of the Hazuki family. Manu looked in the direction of the voice and saw the half-man, half-fish Hoshigaki Kisame rushing over at an extremely fast swimming speed. So fast. He was shocked, and before he could react, the other party had already arrived in front of him. There was no extra attacking movement, and he passed by him directly. In just a moment, countless tiny fangs grew on the triangular fin that rubbed his body, and with the momentum of the impact, it tore his shoulder apart in one go. Hiss, Manu took a breath of cold air. It was not because of the pain. After all, a liquefied body cannot feel pain. It was because 1/3 of his chakra was sucked away the moment he came into contact with the opponent. Although he took a short break while waiting for the seal of the six-tailed beast, such a short time was not enough to recover the consumption of his continuous battles. At this moment, being sucked by Hoshigaki Kisame again, his condition became worse. Some ninjutsu are a combination of multiple ninjutsu, not a single technique. Therefore, the combination of Great Explosion Water Wave and Human Sword integration is water prison same dance. For example, the Kirin of the second pillar needs the Chidori to induce natural lightning to release. Without natural lightning, a single Chidori cannot become a Kirin. Chapter 492, Desire to Steal. We must fight quickly. Otherwise, I can't outlast him in this water. Mainjutsu Kisame immediately saw through the whole battle situation. With Hoshigaki Kisame's swimming speed, he had no chance of getting rid of him and floating to the surface. In fact, because of the strong water resistance and the difference in swimming speed, his superb swordsmanship skills were completely useless, and he couldn't touch the opponent's hair at all. As for ninjutsu, it was also difficult to work under the water resistance. Perhaps, it is more likely to send food to the opponent to replenish chakra. What's wrong, genius of the Hoshigaki family? Why don't you continue to teach me with your superb swordsmanship? After a successful strike, Kisame stopped in the water and smiled triumphantly. Looking at the recovered shoulder, Mainjutsu Kisame replied coldly, don't worry, I will definitely teach you, the junior who uses Samehuda. As he spoke, he quietly scattered the thin sewing needle wire into the water. Among the 4 ninja swords he mastered, only the sewing needle was the most suitable for dealing with the current situation. To be precise, it should be the sewing needle wire. The thin steel wire is hard to be noticed in the dark deep water, and it is almost unaffected by the water resistance. With just one chance, he can make this unruly deep water giant shark bow down completely. Then let me see how you will instruct me this time. Hashiga Kikisame rushed over again. In the water, Beiju said to Achihirobito, the six-tailed seal is successful, you can make a move. Although he was thousands of meters away, he had a clone lurking under Frost's ice wall space, monitoring the process of Meditarumi and others sealing the six-tail. Through telepathy, the original body learned the news of the six-tailed seal from the clone at the first time. Do it. Obito snorted coldly and immediately threw a smoke bomb. In an instant, purple smoke and dust filled the air, completely submerging the figures of the two. Then, in Frost's perception, Achihirobito's chakra aura became two. Then, two Achihirobitos rushed out of the purple smoke, one on the left, and one on the right, and ran straight to the center of the ice flow. Do you really want to lose Nohara-in again, Achihirobito? Unable to tell the real and fake of the two, Qishuang could only warn and threaten loudly. Obviously, one of them should be the transformation of White Zetsu. White Zetsu's ability to change is perfect, even the chakra aura is exactly the same as Obito's, and there is no way to distinguish. Hearing this, Obito on the left sneered, it's just a mere Vulpix, it won't make you and me fall out. He knew very well where Qishuang's bottom line was, and Qishuang also knew where his bottom line was. If he cancelled the immortal reincarnation just for a Vulpix, it would only make him hate Kirigakure even more. If he stayed here and entangled endlessly, Kirigakure would never be at peace. Therefore, he knew that, if he just snatched a Vulpix, the other party would never cancel the immortal reincarnation. But that was all. After snatching the Vulpix, he had to leave Kirigakure as soon as possible. Otherwise, if they continue to toss and turn, the other party will really cancel Lin's reincarnation in anger. Then, Obito on the right said, why don't you do another good thing, and give me the Vulpix? As long as I get the Vulpix, I will leave here immediately, and never come back. Qishuang snorted coldly, while guarding against the two people approaching quickly. Don't think I don't know what you are planning. If you want the Vulpix, then use your ability, to snatch it from me. After saying that, he immediately used the ice escape, to return to the ice wall space. At this time, the giant beast in the space had disappeared, leaving only the 8 empty cold locks and the bronze tripod brought by Terumi Medi and others. Is the seal completely completed? Qishuang confirmed with several people seriously. The seal on the bronze tripod was visible, emitting a faint white light, and it looked unstable. Well, it's okay. Terumi wiped the sweat from her forehead, pointed at the bronze tripod and added breathlessly, when that guy completely accepts his fate and stops struggling, the seal will naturally disappear. Hearing this, Qishuang stepped forward quickly, and placed her hand on the bronze tripod. Ice release, ice sealing technique. As the cold air lingered, the entire bronze tripod was immediately completely frozen in it. Then, he connected the chakra in the cold locks, and regained control of the 8 cold locks. Under his control, the tips of the 8 cold locks were pointed at the bronze tripod one after another. In the surprised eyes of several people, the ice layer outside the bronze tripod was like melting butter. The hard cold locks hit it, and not only did not make any sound, but merged together silently. The cold locks and the ice layer outside the bronze tripod were no longer distinguishable from each other, and they were completely integrated. Qishuang knew that the god of power in Achihirobito's right eye had an extremely powerful absorption ability. If he only used the cold chain to lock the bronze tripod, it would be very likely that the other party would directly suck the bronze tripod away, leaving only a few empty cold chains here. But if he freezes the cold chain and the bronze tripod together, if the other party wants to suck the bronze tripod away, he will have to suck away the cold chain as well. And this cold chain is connected to the underground water veins, and its weight and volume are immeasurable. The other party's god of war can't even absorb a complete tailed beast, let alone absorb his cold chain. He doesn't have to worry about the safety of the 6-tailed beast. At this time, a void vortex on the ice wall quickly opened, and 2 Obitus walked out one after another. Why are there 2 Achihirobitus? Clone technique? Terumi was a little surprised when she saw it. Qishuang did not answer, but secretly injected chakra into the ice layer under his feet. After opening the top layer of ice, he whispered to him, take people to the outside for support, and leave this to me. Oh. Terumi responded, and then winked at several sealed ninjas, and immediately led them to climb out along the ice wall. The two Obito saw that they had no intention of stopping them, because he knew that snatching the Vulpix was already the limit of what the other party could endure. If he attacked again, Lin would be in danger. Next to the bronze tripod, Nana Qishuang looked up at the two people and sneered, "You are really not afraid of death. You actually dared to chase down and snatch the Vulpix. Aren't you afraid that I will kill you the moment you use the absorption ability?" If Obito wanted to take the Vulpix away, using the absorption ability was undoubtedly the most convenient. Once the bronze tripod was sucked into the different space, it would completely become the other party's personal property, and no one could take it back. However, the moment of absorbing the bronze tripod was also the time when Obito revealed his true flaws. In the past, the Seven Frosts' physical skills were commonplace, and even if he found such a flaw, he would not be able to seize the opportunity. But now, in the state of immortality, his speed, strength and reaction ability have all been qualitatively improved. He can completely seize this moment of flaw and kill Obito. As he spoke, he rushed up with an ice escape and punched Obito directly on the left. Boom. The fist fell into the air and hit the ice wall. The huge sound echoed in the space of the ice wall, but the ice wall was not damaged at all. Even with the blessing of the immortal power, he could not destroy the special ice layer created by this immortal technique. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 493, Hard to Stop. The two Obitus ignored Nanashi and rushed down to the frozen bronze tripod without looking back. "If you want the Vulpix, you have to get past me first." Nanashi snorted coldly and once again used the ice release to block the two people in front of him and punch them again. This time he aimed at the man on the right. Wood release. Wood barrier. Obito on the right quickly formed a seal and opened his 10 fingers towards Nanashi. In an instant, his arms turned into withered branches, twisting and entwining into a wooden barrier in front of him. Nanashi was not afraid and punched him directly. Crack. Wherever the fist passed, all the branches broke, and they were penetrated in just a moment. It's amazing. Even the physical strength is so strong. Obito on the right was full of emotion. With the endless nature of wood release, the defensive power of the wood barrier is very strong. Often, the opponent just broke one branch, and two more grew behind it. However, under this guy's fist, his wooden barrier was no different from tofu. The speed of destruction far exceeded the speed of growth, and it was completely unable to block the terrifying punch. Bang! The fist pierced through the barrier without any fancy moves, and hit the body of Obito on the right. Entity? Nana Frost was a little surprised. He actually hit the entity. He didn't know whether the other party didn't want to use the ability of hollowing to expose his true identity, or whether the man in front of him was not Obito at all and couldn't use the ability of hollowing. With a burst of strength, Obito in front of him was immediately blown away like a cannonball. With a loud bang, he was hit on the ice wall on the opposite side, and his life and death were unknown. At the same time, the other Obito was less than 10 meters away from the bronze tripod. Without thinking too much, Nana Frost immediately used Ice Escape to block his way. Seeing that Obito had no intention of stopping, he grabbed a piece of wooden thorn sticking out from the palm of his right hand and immediately went up to meet him. Boom boom boom. After fighting for 7 or 8 moves in a row, Qishuang found that this person could always see through his moves and respond to his attacks half a beat in advance. Fortunately, in his sage state, his attack speed and reaction ability have been greatly improved. Even if the opponent can see through his moves, he can only barely cope with it and cannot counter him at all. "You are the real Obito," Qishuang said with a sneer while punching. White Zetsu's ability to change is indeed difficult to distinguish between true and false, but fake is fake. No matter how White Zetsu changes, he can't change the ability of Sharingan. What others see is just a look-alike that looks like Sharingan, but it does not have the real function of Sharingan. It's just a trick. So what if you guessed it? Can you stop me? After being exposed, Obito no longer concealed his true identity and immediately used his ability to transform into a virtual object to meet his fist. Whoosh! Qishuang's fist went through the opponent's chest, and there was no longer the sense of physical contact in the close combat just now. Obito chuckled and let him pass through his body and continued to run towards the bronze tripod below. Neither of them could do anything to the other, and it would only be a waste of time to entangle. It would be better to grab the six-tailed beast and leave Kirigakure as soon as possible. If you are really capable, then defeat me first. Turning around, Nana Frost sneered unceremoniously and chased after him again. At this moment, a huge shadow suddenly appeared under his feet, and there was a whistling sound of wind above his head. Through chakra perception, Nana Frost immediately discovered that it was Black Zetsu who had revealed his original appearance on the other side who attacked him. He even found that there was a body of white Zetsu lying on the ice just below Black Zetsu. It seems that the opponent should have taken advantage of the opportunity just now to call another white Zetsu and transferred it to the opponent. No wonder Black Zetsu was able to stand up and fight back after being hit by his heavy punch that was comparable to the power of the tailed beast. In an instant, a sharp thorn covered an area of dozens of meters above his head like a spear, stabbing straight at him, and even completely covered Obito, who was not far away. Not daring to block it, and not wanting to waste his remaining chakra, Nana Qishuang immediately used Ice Escape to move to the opposite ice wall. Bang, bang, bang. The thorn spear stabbed on the ice wall, making a harsh impact sound, but it did not leave a trace on the ice wall, but was completely broken on it. As for Uchiha Obito, relying on his ability to hollow, he passed through the thorn obstacle without delay, and continued to rush towards the frozen bronze tripod on the ground. It's mine. Seeing the target getting closer and closer, he couldn't help but reveal a proud look, and stopped using his ability to hollow, preparing to absorb the bronze tripod. Kamyu, the moment he touched the frozen bronze tripod, he immediately activated the right Sharingan. The black triangular windmill mark was spinning in his eyes, and a vortex of void quickly opened in front of him. At the same time, Qishuang also used the Ice Escape to follow the opponent and quickly punched him. Whoosh! The fist passed through the figure without feeling any force at all. Bluffing? At this moment, Qishuang immediately understood that the opponent was just deceiving him, just like testing Zabuza. Then, Obito's proud voice came to his ears. Do you think that after knowing that you have the ability to move quickly in the ice area, I will still rashly reveal my flaws? Naive. Just as Qishuang passed through his body with a punch, he stopped his ability to hollow out and revealed his entity and opened his right hand towards Qishuang. Would escape Hell's chaos in an instant. His right arm turned into a rapidly growing thorn, like a ferocious dragon, strangling Qishuang unscrupulously. Without time to use the instant body, Qishuang immediately clamped the sharp thorns with both hands, twisting it left and right again. With a click, it immediately tore it in half. Obito's pupils shrank slightly when he saw it, and he was terrified, but he still did not stop and continued to infuse chakra into the thorns, prompting the thorns to grow rapidly. The two halves of the thorns torn apart by Qishuang sprouted and grew again, from 1 to 2, from 2 to 4. In the blink of an eye, he was blasted to the opposite ice wall and completely submerged in the wanton growth of thorns. Even if I can only hold you back for a few seconds, it's enough for me. With a sneer, Obito seized the opportunity to pull his right hand out of the thorns and put it on the frozen bronze tripod again. Kamyu, while guarding against Qishuang's sneak attack, he focused his chakra on his right eye, opened a void vortex in front of him, and applied the suction force to the frozen bronze tripod. However, his smile soon froze on his face. The frozen bronze tripod was sucked up by the suction force, but was held back by the 8 cold chains on it, and could not be sucked into his space. He felt like he was collecting a mountain. No matter how hard he tried to drive the power of his right eye, he still could not pull the 8 cold chains out from the ground. How could this happen? Obito was shocked. He successfully got the opportunity to collect the 6-tailed beast, but the result was beyond his expectations. Although the 8 cold chains were not small, he thought that they were not larger than what he could absorb. However, the weight of the cold chains was completely beyond his imagination. The power of Kamyu could not absorb it at all. I don't know what the limit of kami can be absorbed, but it is certain that Obito cannot use kami to collect the complete tailed beast directly. The weight and volume of the tailed beast are beyond his absorption range. Therefore, as long as the weight or volume meets the standard, he can't absorb it at all. Chapter 494 Sealed. Just as Uchiha Obito was stunned, a cold voice came from behind him. Surprised, aren't you? Do you think that after knowing that you have the ability to absorb external objects, I would not be prepared at all and just put the bronze tripod here for you to take? Naive. Then, another strong wind came from behind him. Obito hurriedly stopped the action of absorbing the bronze tripod and turned the effect of Kamio from the outside to the inside, making himself enter the hollow state. Bang! A fist burst out of his chest and hit the frozen bronze tripod in front of him. Knowing that Nana Frost had escaped, Obito did not dare to continue to entangle and immediately retreated with the ability of hollowing. At the same time, next to Black Zetsu, a white figure flashed out from the ice wall and pressed his shoulder. It was Nana Frost's ice clone that had been lurking in the ice wall space earlier. Black Zetsu wanted to hide, but his attention was initially focused on Obito and the other person below. By the time he noticed someone approaching, it was too late. Before he could react, a hand with terrifying power had already grabbed his shoulder tightly. Then, a slightly mocking voice came from behind. Do you think my target is really Uchiha Obito? The kid looking for his mother. Senjutsu Ice Release Eternal Ice Coffin. Black Zetsu's heart trembled when he heard it, and he instinctively wanted to escape underground, but the ice wall space was full of hard ice, and there was no soft soil for him to escape underground. Even before he had such an idea, he had no chance to implement it, and a bone-piercing cold breath penetrated into his body, immediately freezing him into a crystal ice sculpture. And Qishuang's ice clone, because of this Senjutsu, completely exhausted its chakra, turned into an ice man, and fell straight down. Bang! The ice man, who had exhausted his chakra, shattered on the ice surface below. Finally caught him. Next to the bronze tripod, Qishuang showed a relieved smile. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Ever since he was surrounded and attacked at the Kizuku family and found Black Zetsu, he secretly made up his mind that, if there was a chance, he must keep Black Zetsu completely. But Black Zetsu was very careful and rarely made a move or showed up, so he never found an opportunity. That's why he waited until now. Although Uchiha Obito was annoying, he was far less troublesome than the two people behind Black Zetsu. Even now, with the power of immortals, he was still not sure he could deal with those two people. But he knew very well that Black Zetsu was the key to the reappearance of those two people in this world. As long as this link was destroyed, there would be almost no possibility for those two people to come out again. Therefore, even though he knew that Uchiha Obito could not take away the copper tripod locked by the cold chain, he still stayed to guard the copper tripod and do the seemingly meaningless work. It was to find an opportunity to attack Black Zetsu. Even in order to prevent Black Zetsu from escaping, the clone exhausted his chakra and deliberately used immortal techniques. In the ice layer known as the Eternal Ice, Black Zetsu would never be able to escape again. After all, Black Zetsu doesn't have the hollow ability that Uchiha Obito has that ignores everything. At the same time, hearing his words, Obito on the other side suddenly realized. No wonder the other party wasted his energy to tangle with him here when he was not worried about the bronze tripod being robbed. It turned out that the other party's target was not him at all, but Black Zetsu. Black Zetsu is the shadow left in the world after the death of that person, the clone of that person's will, and also an eye that monitors him. The importance of Black Zetsu to the organization is self-evident, but Black Zetsu rarely shows up, and only he and White Zetsu know the details. And Qishuang is so thoughtful to deal with him, it is hard to imagine how much the other party knows about their organization. Ignoring the astonished Uchiha Obito, Qishuang used Ice Escape Instant Body to rush to the side of Black Zetsu who was frozen in the ice wall. Then, with the ability to control ice, he separated the Black Zetsu ice sculpture from the ice wall. With another instant body, he landed next to the bronze tripod with the Black Zetsu ice sculpture. Don't waste your thoughts. You can't take away the Vulpix, and you can't save Black Zetsu. Leave Kirigakure now, and don't force me to cancel the immortal reincarnation. Qishuang piled the black Zetsu ice sculpture on the bronze tripod, while talking to Obito on the other side. Ice release, ice sealing technique. In an instant, he saw cold air lingering in his palm, freezing the bronze tripod and the black Zetsu ice sculpture together. If you don't believe it, you can give it a try. Qishuang did not hide his mockery, and immediately used an ice escape, to disappear in an instant. When Uchiha Obito came to his senses, he realized that the other party had left the ice wall space. So confident, looking at the frozen black Zetsu and the bronze tripod, Obito became more skeptical. For everything, you have to try it, before you know if it works. Since the other party gave him the opportunity to try so generously, he naturally didn't want to leave in such a dejected manner. Then, he pinched a seal with one hand, and opened his right hand towards the frozen black Zetsu. Then, the chakra was transformed into the nature of wood, and the whole arm was transformed into a vine, which tightly entangled the black Zetsu ice sculpture. Twist. With a light shout, he immediately used the wood release chakra to promote the growth of the vine, hoping to use the endless power of wood to crush the ice sculpture. As long as the ice sculpture was crushed, black Zetsu would naturally be able to escape. As for the method of using the ability of hollowing to sneak into the ice sculpture, and then sucking black Zetsu from inside, to transfer into his own space, he had thought about it. But if he wanted to suck black Zetsu from the space to transfer, he needed to show his body. The ice was very hard, and even if he could enter and exit freely through the ability of hollowing, he would never dare to remove the hollowing and show his body inside. Because, the moment he showed his body, he would be crushed into a meat pie by the narrow internal space. Just when Uchiha Obito was trying his best to break the ice, Nana Frost joined the battle group in the floating ice field, and worked hard with Terumi Medi and others, to solve the besieged enemies. He condensed a 3-foot-long ice spear, and with the physical fitness enhancement brought by the immortal transformation, he quickly swung through the crowd. Wherever he passed, people and horses fell to the ground, and no one could withstand the force of his spear. It was like a wolf entering a flock of sheep, and no one could stop it. Although in terms of killing efficiency, this kind of close combat method of physical skills is not as good as a large-scale ninjutsu attack. But at this moment, the three parties are fighting together. If he rashly uses a large-scale attack, it will only involve his own people. Therefore, even if he has such ability, he dare not use it rashly. In addition, after fighting repeatedly and not resting much, his chakra is less than 1/5 left. Rashly using ninjutsu to consume chakra will only put himself in a dangerous situation. Relying on the powerful physical fitness of the immortal transformation, using close combat physical skills to fight the enemy is the most labor-saving choice. After all, in this state, his physical reaction, strength, speed, have all been greatly improved, and he is not at the same level as ordinary people. When the ninjas of the Hoshigaki school meet him, they have no power to fight back, just like mowing the grass. Because of his strong intervention, the battle situation on the water began to tilt, and Hoshigaki's ninjas were defeated. Don't rush, the story of Kirigakure is about to end. Later, a couple will fight, and defeat Hoshigaki's ninjas, and it will be basically over. Chapter 495 Kisame, Part 2. Under the water, Hoshigaki Kisame gained an overwhelming advantage in the water with his half-a-man, half-fish posture. Water resistance can delay the opponent's attack and movement, but the effect on him is very small. He became the undisputed king of this area of water. He thought that he only needed 2 more hits to drain main Jetsu Kizuki's chakra and completely win, but he didn't expect that the opponent was more difficult than he imagined. Main Jetsu Kizuki was greatly affected by the water resistance, and it was difficult to pose a threat to him, but the opponent used the water transformation technique to integrate his body into the water, and evaded his many attacks in succession. Although he gained a strong chakra perception in the water with the man and sword integration, he could clearly capture the opponent's liquefied body integrated into the water and touch those liquefied bodies. But in this state, main Jetsu Kizuki's body was diluted in a large amount of water, and the chakra he could absorb was very limited. Originally, only the last 2 hits were needed to decide the outcome, but he made nearly 10 consecutive shots and still failed to completely solve the problem. Hey, if you want to keep hiding like this, you'd better admit defeat as soon as possible. For the sake of being from the same village, I'll let you go today. Looking at the recondensed figure not far away, Hoshigaki Kisame sneered unceremoniously. Cough cough cough. Main Jetsu Kizuki didn't reply immediately, but just floated in the water, coughed violently a few times, and his face became much paler. Along with the blood color, a string of bubbles floated to the surface of the water. Seeing this, Kisame continued to taunt. Sick ghost of the Kizuki family, I think you'd better admit defeat. Looking at your appearance, not to mention that you have no chance to beat me. Even if you can beat me, you won't live long. If you admit defeat now, I will let you go back, and maybe you can even tell your last words. Hearing this, Main Jetsu Kizuki hunched his back, covered his mouth, and coughed more violently. A large string of blood-colored bubbles floated out from his fingers again. He knew very well that his time was running out. After a series of battles without much rest, he was already in poor health and almost reached his limit. In the end, he ran into a guy who specialized in absorbing chakra. It was really unlucky. You know, chakra is the product of the combination of vitality and mental power. The loss of a large amount of chakra means that the human body will fall into an extremely weak state, or even die. In terms of his physical condition, the loss of a large amount of chakra is undoubtedly fatal. Although he avoided Kisame's many attacks by liquefying into the water, it only reduced the amount of chakra that Kisame absorbed each time. The opponent can also absorb part of his chakra when he swims past him and merges into the water. Now, he squeezed his body, causing great damage to his vitality. I'm afraid he can't hold on for much longer. Fortunately, he has already set up a winning chess game. Then, he looked at Kisame and said expressionlessly, this battle should end, Junior. Ahem. As he said that, he was seen holding the sewing needle in his left hand, and his right hand seemed to make a pulling motion. Because the light was dim underwater, Kisame couldn't see what was in his right hand. But then, Kisame found that there were some changes in the surrounding waters, as if the surrounding waters were compressing towards the center. After concentrating his attention, he found that it was a huge steel wire net covering the waters of dozens of meters in radius, which was shrinking inward with him as the center. This caused the waters to have abnormal fluctuations of compression. How is it possible? Kisame was shocked. He had no idea when the other party had set up such a large steel net trap. Nothing is impossible, Junior, Main Jetsu said expressionlessly, shrinking the steel net slowly but quickly. When he liquefied and merged into the waters to avoid the attack, he was not simply dodging and doing nothing. Instead, he unknowingly scattered the sewing wire into the water while being chased by Hoshigaki Kisame. If the other party was careful to observe, he would find that the position of his body every time he recondensed was different from the position of the last time he merged into the water. Kisame attacked him nearly 10 times in a row, leaving him with nearly 10 points. He then connected these 10 points with the help of the steel wire of the sewing needle, and it became a net. Because the steel wire of the sewing needle is not a chakra creation, but a real steel wire, there will be no chakra fluctuations, and the opponent's instinctive chakra perception will not be able to sense the existence of the steel wire at all. In addition, the vision in deep water is extremely poor, and the thin steel wire that is difficult to detect on land is even more difficult to detect underwater. If the steel wire did not form a large net, increasing the water resistance area, it would inevitably cause water resistance fluctuations when shrinking. Perhaps when Kisame was completely tied up by the large net, he would find that he was trapped. At the same time, when he found that the steel net was shrinking, Kisame immediately rushed towards the mesh that had not yet been completely closed. Even in the state of man and sword as one, no matter how thick his skin and flesh were, he dared not compare with the steel wire of the sewing needle. If he was not careful, he would be torn into pieces. Fortunately, because the steel net covered an area of several dozen meters, the area was relatively wide, and the mesh was naturally larger. As long as he could break out of the mesh, the steel net trap would be useless. Everything still had room for reversal. Don't even think about it. Cough cough cough. Seeing his intention, Main Jetsu Kizuki accelerated the speed of shrinking the steel net and used the power of ninjutsu to increase his arm strength. Water style, great water arm technique. He saw blood oozing from his mouth. His right arm swelled up, and he pulled hard again, and the speed of shrinking the steel net suddenly increased sharply. What? Seeing that he was about to break out of the mesh with his inhuman swimming speed, but was stuck by the suddenly shrinking steel net, Kisame couldn't help but exclaimed, "It's over, Junior." Maingetsu Kizuki pulled the steel wire mercilessly. In just a moment, Kisame found that his arms had lost consciousness, and a sharp stabbing pain surged to his cerebral cortex, causing him to almost faint. Turning his head again, he saw a pair of arms with triangular fins floating in the red water. It was not until then that he realized that his arms were cut off at the shoulder by the stitching wire. Because of the severe pain, he could no longer keep in sync with Samehada and maintain the state of man and sword as one. The abnormal fish transformation on his body gradually recovered, and Samehada broke out of his body and turned back into the blue-skinned shark-faced monster. However, he could no longer hold Samehada beside him. In order to help him, you are almost losing your life. Is it worth it? Looking at the white-haired young man swimming over, Kisame asked unwillingly. Although he was defeated, Manzuki Kizuki was seriously injured and would not live long. He really couldn't understand why he would do this for the enemy. Looking at the shark face floating in the water, Manzuki Kizuki said solemnly, "People will always die when they are alive, but if they can exchange their limited life for unlimited hope, it is worth it." Cough cough cough. After that, he coughed up a lot of blood again. Because of the blood, his clothes were all stained red. "So, he gave you hope. That's really happiness." Kisame smiled bitterly, with a little more admiration in his eyes. After killing all his life, he still didn't find the meaning of fighting. He was just following Uchiha Obito's orders, not fighting according to his own will. Chapter 496 Rescue. At the same time, several Hoshigaki ninjas cruising underwater rushed over after discovering that Hoshigaki Kisame had been defeated. This huge water battlefield was created independently by Hoshigaki Kisame. At this time, because of Kisame's defeat, the huge water area lost control and began to gradually recede. If they lost the advantage of the water battlefield, it would undoubtedly be a heavy blow to their Hoshigaki family's strategic plan. They couldn't let Kisame fall into the hands of the enemy, and they had to let him stabilize the existence of the water battlefield again. Sensing the approach of his fellow tribesmen, Hoshigaki Kisame floated quietly in the water and said to Manu with a little regret, "It seems that you are going to die here today." Even he could see that the opponent's condition was extremely poor. Perhaps a mere genin could take the head of this genius of Hoshigaki. Cough cough cough. Hoshigaki Manu did not respond, but coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood again, tightened the needle, and slowly stabbed the tip of the knife into the center of Kisame's eyebrows. Now, he could barely float to the surface, and there was no way he could escape the siege of the Hoshigaki ninjas. All he could do was use his last bit of strength to take away this guy who could influence the battle situation. In this way, his previous efforts would not be in vain. "Stop!" The Hoshigaki ninjas shouted hurriedly, but Manu seemed to have not heard them at all, and still stabbed the tip of the knife firmly and slowly. Kisame, who had lost both arms, could do nothing but calmly watch the tip of the knife slowly stab down. Although he still had 2 legs, and might be able to struggle, he felt that it was no longer necessary. Perhaps, dying in battle on the land of Kirigakure is my best destination. He comforted himself. Born here, die here. There is no better ending than this. Seeing that the tip of the knife was close to Kisame's eyebrows, the Hoshigaki ninjas became more and more anxious, but they were too far away and could not stop it in time. Although they were very good at swimming, they could not come and go as fast as on land. And Maingetsu Hazuki was right next to Kisame, and they were too late. I hope that guy doesn't forget our agreement. Just as Maingetsu's knife pierced Kisame's forehead, a very cold and terrifying breath came from the top of his head. Before he could come to his senses, the terrifying cold breath had already invaded him. In just a moment, his whole body was covered with a thick layer of ice crystals, and Kisame under the knife was also frozen. What is that? A Hoshigaki ninja was shocked when he saw it. Just now, he seemed to see an icicle protruding from the water surface, and instantly froze Maingetsu Hazuki and Kisame Hoshigaki in it. Oh no, it's that guy named Nanashiro. A person next to him screamed, hurriedly stopped his move, and turned around to flee. At this time on the battlefield, except for the terrifying guy named Nanashiro, there was no one else who could use ice escape. He really didn't have the confidence to snatch people from the other party. especially when he had seen the other parties killing, like mowing grass on the water surface before. He didn't have the courage to fight against him. He couldn't think of any countermeasures except running away. At the same time, hearing this terrifying name, the other Hoshigaki ninjas also gave up the plan to rescue Hoshigaki Qishuang and hurriedly turned around and left. On the water surface, sensing the escaped people, Qishuang snorted coldly, "You run fast." After that, he picked up the ice pillar under the water and slowly pulled it out of the water. After roughly dealing with the enemies on the water surface, he began to search for Maingetsu and Hoshigaki Maingetsu who were fighting alone. He happened to see the scene where Maingetsu defeated Hoshigaki Qishuang. Unfortunately, before he had time to greet the other party, he found that several more Hoshigaki ninjas came underwater. He also saw the scene where Maingetsu was forced into a desperate situation and was ready to die with Hoshigaki Qishuang. Helplessly, he had to use the ice sealing technique to freeze the two together and completely bring them under his protection. Fortunately, the water began to dissipate, the water became shallower and shallower, and his ice escape would freeze at its maximum speed in the water, so he had a chance to freeze both of them. Otherwise, Hoshigaki Qishuang would have died at Manyu's hands. When the ice column that froze the two of them emerged from the water, Qishuang pinched a seal with one hand and shouted softly, "Release." Then, the ice column shattered, and Manyu walked out with a pale face. As for Hoshigaki Qishuang, he was still frozen in the ice, leaving only his head outside to ensure breathing. Cough cough cough. With a sweet taste in his throat, Manyu coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood again. Seeing his legs soften, Qishuang hurriedly supported him so that he didn't collapse. "Are you okay?" Qishuang asked hurriedly. "I'm fine." Manyu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and waved his hands repeatedly. "Really okay?" He was a little suspicious. Hoshigaki Qishuang next to him sneered and interrupted, "It would be strange if he is fine. His body is exhausted and he is about to die." "What?" Qishuang was suddenly shocked. This answer was not what he wanted. Manyu looked at Qishuang coldly and then solemnly said to Qishuang, "You have seen my sincerity. I hope you don't forget our agreement." Cough cough cough. He covered his mouth and coughed lightly, but still couldn't stop the blood from leaking out of the gap between his fingers. "Don't worry, I will definitely help you find Sujetsu Hazuki back," Qishuang promised seriously. Very good, very good." Cough cough cough. Manyu nodded, smiled and patted his shoulder gently with the bloody palm. "Let's go, I'll take you down to rest first." Qishuang supported Manyu Hazuki with one hand and dragged the frozen Hoshigaki Qishuang with the other hand and rushed to the center of the floating ice area. In the ice wall space, Archer Hirobito used all means. Whether it was fire escape, wood escape, or detonating talisman, he couldn't make the ice crack. After working for a long time, he only broke off a small corner the size of a thumb. He was helpless against these extremely hard ice blocks. No wonder the other party was so confident that he let him experiment here alone. Everything he did was in vain. Looking at the frozen black Zetsu, Obito said helplessly, "You can see that these ice blocks are too hard. I can't destroy them at all. It's beyond my ability to suck them all away. It seems that you can only stay here with that terrifying guy. Anyway, you don't have a physical body, so you can't die at all. Why don't you find a chance to escape later?" For some reason, when he said this, he felt a little happy in his heart. There was no frustration and disappointment of not being able to rescue his companions. "Perhaps, I'm also looking forward to the moment when the stumbling block of Black Zetsu disappears," he said to himself secretly. The existence of Black Zetsu has always put pressure on him, making him never forget the terrifying man who once saved him. He didn't know whether the man had left any means for Black Zetsu to check and balance him, but now that Black Zetsu was trapped, no matter what means the man left behind, it was useless against him. He no longer needed to follow the path arranged by the man. Chapter 497 Troubles. Alas. After sighing helplessly, Archer Hirobito said to Black Zetsu with a little sadness, "I can't do anything about it. You can slowly find a chance to escape." After that, he immediately opened a vortex of emptiness, quickly sucked himself into it, and then disappeared. Black Zetsu was frozen in the ice, unable to move, and could only watch Obito leave, looking extremely helpless and pitiful. Then, 500 meters away from the floating ice field, the vortex of emptiness opened again, and Obito slowly walked out. The play he directed was about to end. If he couldn't witness it with his own eyes, it would be too regrettable for him. On the other side, Nanoshima brought Maingetsu and the frozen Hashigaki Kisame back to the center of the floating ice field. At this time, the battle near the floating ice field was basically over. The ninjas of Hashigaka's school either died or surrendered. The ninjas of Terumi Hashigaka's school lay silently on the floating ice, either resting or treating their wounds. Everything was going on in an orderly manner. Outside the floating ice area, without the control of Hashigaki Kisame, the water area receded quickly. The water level, which was originally nearly 30 meters, has dropped to less than 10 meters. However, as the water level dropped, the bodies that sank to the bottom of the water gradually emerged. According to Qishuang's estimation, at least half of the people inside were dragged into the water by Hashigaki ninja and drowned. Take good care of your young clan leader. Come to me directly if you have any problems. After handing Hashigaki Maingetsu to the hands of Hashigaka's ninjas and solemnly instructing them again, Qishuang carried the frozen Hashigaki Kisame and walked towards the circular ice wall. Release. With a light shout, after the circular ice wall was released, the copper tripod and black Zetsu locked inside were revealed. Then, he slowly walked over and placed the frozen Kisame next to the copper tripod. Immortal technique ice release eternal ice coffin. The cold air spread from his body and slowly penetrated into the ice layer on Kisame's body. A new layer of ice formed on the surface of Kisame's skin, pushing the original ordinary ice layer outside and freezing it together with the bronze tripod. Do you know why I didn't kill you, but saved you from Maingetsu Kazuki? Qishuang said to Kisame with mixed feelings, standing in front of Kisame. Because of the extreme cold, Kisame's shoulder wounds were frozen to the point of losing consciousness, and it didn't hurt at all. You just want to get information about that person from me. Kisame looked at him playfully and said, I advise you to give up. I came from the secret work of Kirigakure, so I naturally know what methods you will use and how to deal with you. You can't get any information from me. Looking at his confident look, Qishuang shook his head and turned his gaze to Kisame's broken arm and Samehada, which were frozen together. Then, he pressed his right palm outside the ice layer, where Samehada was located. Open. He thought to himself, and his mental power controlled the changes in the ice layer, cracking a gap, and he reached his hand in. Then, he grabbed Samehada's hilt, pulled it out of the ice, and said to Kisame, I'm not interested in the information you have. Because I know much more than you. The reason why I spared your life is not for the information, but for the future of Kirigakure. Hearing this, Hashigaki Kisame was stunned. Such an answer was really beyond his expectation. Someone actually said such words to him, a scum who brought chaos to Kirigakure. If he was judged according to the rules of Kirigakure, people like him would not be too much to be sentenced to death by being cut into pieces. Be quiet, little guy. Looking at Samehada struggling in his hand, Nanashiro frowned and shouted. As if being held by a stranger, Samehada was a little restless, and a row of sharp barbs grew from the hilt, trying to force him to let go. Unfortunately, Nanamishang's skin was thick and tough in the state of immortalization, and Samehada's barbs had little effect on him. It was all in vain. Then, in order to calm the restless Samehada, Nanamishang secretly injected a stream of chakra from the hilt. Feeling the chakra mixed with the three attributes of ice, water and wind, Samehada suddenly calmed down. It seems that my guess is right. My chakra contains the three attributes of ice, water and wind. It is not difficult to get Samehada's recognition. Looking at the calm Samehada, Nanamishang chuckled and absorbed it on his back with chakra. Sanbi is Samehada's original owner. Samehada's favorite chakra is Sanbi's chakra. And Sanbi's chakra contains the three attributes of wind, water, and ice. It's just that Sanbi is mainly based on water escape, while he is mainly based on ice escape, and there is a difference in the primary and secondary attributes. In addition, several previous holders of Samehada mainly used water escape, which made Nanashiro come to the conclusion that Samehada liked chakra similar to the three-tail. Therefore, he had the confidence to try to get Samehada's approval. If it was a ninja who was not good at earth escape or fire escape, there would be no need to try. However, Nanashiro was not good at physical skills, let alone swordsmanship. Sumehada was just a pearl in his hand. The reason why he took Sumehada out of the ice layer was not to take it for himself, but to prevent Sumehada from absorbing chakra, destroying his ice structure, and letting Qishuang run away. Although there are few forces that can destroy his ice escape, the ability to absorb chakra is one of them. To be precise, the ability to absorb chakra has the possibility of destroying all techniques. No matter what technique, it is based on chakra. Once chakra is absorbed, no matter how exquisite and unparalleled the technique is, it will disappear into nothingness. As the saying goes, breaking all laws in the world is nothing more than this. Therefore, Nanomichian cannot just freeze Sumehada and Qishuang in the ice. Although Hoshigaki Qishuang himself also has the ability to absorb chakra, he is completely different from Sumehada. Although the tailed beasts do not know fairy arts and cannot directly use natural energy, they have the ability to sense natural energy and absorb natural energy into their own chakra. Therefore, even if they do not eat or drink, they can still obtain energy supplements from the natural environment. Sumehada has been with the three-tailed beast for many years, and it is very likely that he also has the ability to sense and absorb natural energy. There is a great possibility that his fairy art freeze will be destroyed. But Qishuang is not a fairy after all, and cannot sense natural energy, so naturally he cannot absorb fairy art chakra, and there is no possibility of destroying the fairy art freeze. Therefore, Nanomichian deliberately used the eternal ice coffin to replace the original ordinary freeze, to eliminate the opportunity for the other party to escape. Seeing that shark face was silent and just staring at Sumehada on his back, Qishuang sighed and said, I will keep Sumehada for the time being. When I let you out, I will return it to you. Release me, and then return it to me. Qishuang was getting more and more confused. He had no idea what the young man in front of him was thinking. Chapter 498 Bad News, Part 1. Glancing at the ruins and corpses that had resurfaced after the flood, Qishuang said in a complicated tone, in the current Kirigakure, only 1 in 10 ninjas remain. The situation is extremely bad. If it weren't for your outstanding ability and your usefulness, I would really like to smash your head with a knife. The previous generation of ninja swordsmen were almost wiped out, and with the continuous unrest, ninjas were almost killed or injured. It is urgent to stabilize the order and rebuild Kirigakure. However, rebuilding Kirigakure requires a large number of manpower, and even more so outstanding talents. It would be a pity to kill a ninja like Hoshigaki Qishuang. Although the other party, because of Obito's instigation, colluded with the Hoshigaki family to do this stupid thing of flooding Kirigakure. Hoshigaki Qishuang was born in Kirigakure after all, and it is impossible for him to have no feelings for this place, and there is still a possibility of returning. As for what the families of the deceased who died in this unrest think, Qishuang doesn't care. At least now, he has no intention of releasing Hoshigaki Qishuang, which can be regarded as giving everyone an explanation. That is not an explanation. Hearing the implication of recruiting in his words, Hoshigaki Qishuang sneered, don't waste your energy. I have seen through this hypocritical world, and have no attachment to it. Especially this hypocritical village. I have completely abandoned it. Qishuang glanced at him coldly, and then said to him solemnly, I will put Kirigakure back into your heart. If you fail, cut off your head and bury your body on this land. There is only one chance. If Qishuang is still unwilling to turn back in the end, he can only kill him with pain. He will never let him go, and become Uchiha Obito's pawn. At this time, Terumi Mei came over. The war here has been dealt with almost, and the rest is left to you to handle. I think, after seeing you take action, no one should dare to disobey your orders. I have to go back to Terumi's residence to take a look. I'm very worried about it. The blue-skirted beauty said to him anxiously. You don't have to worry so much. Qishuang gave a comforting smile, and then slowly said, I have explored the battlefield situation before. The main force of Hoshigaki's faction is besieging the Qishuang station. They are just using small forces to contain and harass Terumi's station. Then, he glanced at the scattered puddles around him and continued, earlier, taking advantage of the water area, the Hoshigaki faction that harassed Terumi's station had the upper hand. Now that the water has receded, they should consider retreating. As he said, he immediately spread his perception to Terumi's station. The situation was as he expected. When the water receded, Facing the counterattack of the Terumi faction, the Hoshigaki faction ninjas could not resist at all, and the situation took a sharp turn for the worse. Just when Qishuang was dealing with Hoshigaki Kisame, several wounded mist ninjas came from outside the floating ice field. Have you seen Lord Manu? Have you seen Lord Manu? Several people stumbled onto the floating ice field, anxiously grabbing each mist ninja and repeatedly asking the same question. Unfortunately, the exhausted people didn't want to pay attention to them at all. Especially the ninjas of Terumi's school, who were even more unwilling to pay attention to the group of mist ninjas with the logo of the Hazuki school. However, there were still mist ninjas who were also from the Hazuki school who kindly pointed out the direction for them. Manu is resting behind there. You can go there to find her. Thank you, thank you. Several people thanked them repeatedly and staggered towards the center of the floating ice field. Soon, they found the familiar figure of Hazuki Manu. Unfortunately, before they got close, they were stopped by several mist ninjas in charge of guarding. Stop, don't disturb Master Manu's rest. My name is Tanaka, a servant of the Hazuki family. I have something urgent to see Master Manu. Don't stop me. Among the several mist ninjas, the leader shouted anxiously and tried his best to push away the guards who were blocking them. However, Hazuki Manu was weak, and the guards did not dare to neglect them, and did not dare to let them pass at will. If they hadn't seen that the men had no ill intentions, and were indeed their own people from the Hazuki clan, they would have killed them long ago. Ahem. Hearing the shouting, Hazuki Manu sat up, and whispered to the person next to him, let them come over. But, the person next to him hesitated. It's okay. If they were assassins, they could definitely kill them from this distance. Ahem. Hazuki Manu coughed a few more times. Okay then. Then, the person next to him shouted to the guards, Lord Manu has ordered, let them pass. Upon hearing this, the guards immediately made way, and several wounded mist ninjas stumbled in front of Hazuki Manu. Tanaka, is there something wrong at the base? Seeing the sad faces of the few people, Hazuki Manu had a bad feeling. Several people knelt down with a plop, and the leader Tanaka cried out, Manu, the Hazuki family is finished. What? Hearing this, Hazuki Manu felt like being struck by lightning. His throat felt sweet, and he immediately spurted out a mouthful of blood. Tanaka in front of him couldn't dodge in time, and was immediately sprayed, his face covered with blood. How could it be? How could it be? How could it be? After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Hazuki Manu seemed to have let go of the last breath of the ball, and immediately fell down, his face pale on the ice. No matter what, he could not have thought that he would hear such a desperate news. How could the master be like this? Seeing Manu's weak appearance, the mist ninja named Tanaka was immediately dumbfounded, and didn't even bother to wipe the blood off his face. Get out of here. The mist ninja who had been taking care of Maingetsu was so angry that he kicked him out, and then hurriedly told the two companions beside him, hurry up and find a medical ninja, and Nanashiro-sama. The two companions who were also frightened were stunned for a moment, and then hurried away in a hurry. What happened to Maingetsu-sama? Tanaka, who was kicked out, hurriedly crawled back. As for the fact that he was kicked away just now, he was no longer in the mood to care. He was thinking about what happened to Maingetsu-sama. The mist ninja pulled him up and said angrily, Maingetsu-sama has been seriously injured in a series of battles. You. At the end, he was so angry that he couldn't speak. He could only throw him to the ground again in anger. Nanashiro-sama, it's bad. Something happened. Nanashiro, who was talking about the war with Terumi, looked in the direction of the voice and saw a mist ninja belonging to Maingetsu running over. What's the matter? Nanashiro frowned. Sir, please go and have a look. Something has happened to Master Manu, the visitor said anxiously. Hearing this, Qishuang was shocked and subconsciously said, is Manu dead? No. Yes. The visitor waved his hands repeatedly, but was incoherent and very nervous. Seeing this, Qishuang had to ask Miming, arranged two reliable people, to help me keep an eye on Hoshigaki Kisame. Don't let anyone kill him. I have another great use for his life. After saying this, Qishuang disappeared into the ice layer under his feet. Chapter 499 Bad News, Part 2. Although she was a little confused, Terumi still picked out 4 people from the previous sealing team and told them to keep an eye on the frozen Hashigaki Kisame. After that, she also left quickly and rushed to the location of main Jetsu. After locking main Jetsu's location through perception, Nana Frost used the ice escape to arrive in the blink of an eye. However, his sudden appearance scared the people around him, especially the Tanakas who had just arrived. They subconsciously pulled out their kunai, looking like they were facing a great enemy. They didn't forget that it was this terrifying ice escape ninja who came to the main Jetsu family to assassinate and killed through the guard siege, and even retreated unscathed under the siege of several powerful foreign ninjas. Later, they even heard about the other party's record of suppressing the six-tailed beast by himself. Everyone couldn't help but wonder if they could stop this man's assassination if it weren't for the six-tailed beast's chaos. Don't be nervous, Nana Frost is not an enemy now. The Miss Ninja who was looking after main Jetsu hurriedly reminded them. Tanaka immediately cast a puzzled and inquiring look. The Miss Ninja slowly explained, main Jetsu-sama is determined to negotiate with Terumi's clan and end the war. We are no longer enemies. After defeating Hashigaki Kisame, main Jetsu told all his subordinates present his thoughts. Even though there were still a few different voices, after witnessing the sacrifice of countless companions, most people were tired of killing and eager to restore a peaceful life, so everyone tacitly agreed with the young clan leader's idea. They longed for a truce. So, is that the case? Tanaka put down his kunai, and the few people with him also breathed a sigh of relief. It was not until this time that he understood why the Miss Ninja of main Jetsu's clan and the Miss Ninja of Terumi's clan were in the same ice area, but they were at peace. Originally, he thought it was because they shared the same hatred and defeated the enemies of Hashigaki's clan together. What's going on? Ignoring the few people who showed hostility, Nana Qishuang looked at the person next to main Jetsu. Yes. Just as the man was about to answer, a slightly happy voice came from the side. I found a medical ninja. He turned his head and saw that it was a companion who had been sent out earlier, and he was rushing over with a middle-aged man. They were lucky to find a medical ninja here. In the blink of an eye, the two of them were already close. Sir, please check on the condition of Lady Manayu. Just after landing, before he could stand firmly, the companion urged the medical ninja. Go, go, go. Seeing that Manayu was lying on the ice, his face was as white as paper and his breath was weak, the middle-aged man did not dare to delay and hurriedly began to check. Seeing that the situation was not good, Nana Qishuang did not disturb him again, but just stood quietly by the side. After a hasty inspection, the medical ninja immediately gathered chakra in his hands and suspended them above Manayu's head. Healing technique then, everyone saw a layer of green light on his hands. Main Jetsu Hazuki's condition is not good. With my ability, I can't save him at all. I can only wake him up temporarily, the middle-aged man said to several people while rescuing him. At this time, Terumi Mei also rushed over. What happened? She asked Nana Qishuang in a low voice. I don't know, let's wait a little longer. Nana Qishuang shrugged helplessly. After a few minutes, main Jetsu Hazuki's dull eyes gradually became more lively. It seems that he should be awake. The medical ninja collected the chakra, stopped the treatment, and said to several people, without medicinal materials and medical equipment, this is all I can do. After that, he sighed and stepped aside. On the ice, main Jetsu Hazuki slowly sat up with the help of a subordinate, shook his head and said, I know my body well, don't waste your energy. Cough cough cough. Then, he looked at Tanaka on the other side, and asked with rapid breathing, what happened to the Hazuki family? Tanaka and the few people behind him knelt down again, and said in a sad tone, the main force of the Hashigaki clan besieged our base. They used lightning escape to restrain the Hazuki ninjas, and occupied the water area. The situation is very unfavorable to us. And then, he glanced at main Jetsu Hazuki quietly, and did not dare to say anything else. Speak. Main Jetsu Hazuki took a deep breath, and made enough mental preparations, before giving the order. Tanaka said cautiously, the war situation is not favorable. Some affiliated families saw that the situation was not good, and turned to the Hashigaki faction, and launched a rebellion from within. With the main force of the Hashigaki faction, they completely broke through the Hazuki headquarters. Masamune. Masamune was captured by the traitors, and Hazuki's family was defeated. Hearing this, Hazuki Manayu's mouth suddenly had a hint of sweetness. Ahem. Although he had prepared himself mentally, he was still a little inadequate in the face of such bad news. However, he was not an ordinary person after all, and he was not knocked down by such news again. He swallowed the blood in his mouth, and asked in a hoarse voice, "What's the situation at the base now?" Tanaka wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and continued, "Except for those family forces that switched to Hoshigaki, the other mist ninjas loyal to Hazuki are either dead or fled, and have completely collapsed. But I think, in the name of Master Manayu, it should not be difficult to gather them again." Nanashiro beside him looked to the west, shook his head solemnly, and said, "You have no chance. The Hoshigaki faction has incorporated the remaining Hazuki troops and set out again. The scale is at least more than 3,000 people. They are already killing us." Knowing that Hazuki was broken, he spread his perception in the direction of Hazuki's base, and immediately found the Hoshigaki faction ninja troops that were rushing to kill us. Hearing this, the hearts of several people present couldn't help but skip a beat. In the floating ice area, it was not the main force of Terumi and Hazuki. In addition to the people who came to watch the excitement of sealing the Vulpix, only Hazuki Manayu brought a 500-man assault force at the beginning. But after the previous slaughter, there were less than 800 people left. They were exhausted and had no strength to fight again. Facing the main force of Hoshigaki, it would undoubtedly be a one-sided massacre. What should we do? Terumi Mei grabbed the corner of Nanashi's clothes. She still had some strength left and might be able to escape, but the remaining Terumi ninjas would definitely die. Nanashi thought for a while and asked her solemnly, "Do you dare to kill anyone?" "Kill?" Terumi Mei was stunned for a moment and said unhappily, "Don't joke. Haven't we killed enough people?" She went to the battlefield at the age of 10, and now her hands are full of blood. Such a question is simply an insult to her. Nanashi shook her head and said solemnly, "This time, we have to kill many people. They were all compatriots of Kirigakure, but they stood on the opposite side of us. We will kill 500, 1000, 2000, or even more in one blow. Slaughter them ruthlessly to achieve the goal of completely defeating Hoshigaki. Do you dare?" Chapter 500 Attack. All the people present were shocked to hear that the troops of Hoshigaki's clan were defeated in one blow. If this was said by anyone else, they would just take it as a joke, but the person who said this was Nanashiro. This made them think that it was not impossible. After all, this man who suppressed the tailed beasts with his own strength was too terrifying, and no one could look up to his height. What he said might be true. "What do you want me to do?" Terumi asked, staring at him closely. Nanashiro did not answer directly, but glanced at the people on the floating ice, and solemnly said to her and Manzuki Kizuki, "Order everyone to shrink the defense line, and not act without authorization. We will launch a large-scale ninjutsu attack." Hearing this, the two nodded, and immediately passed the order down. Then, Nanashiro turned his fingers to seal, and immediately saw cold air coming out of his body, condensing into an identical ice clone next to him. "They will arrive here in about 5 minutes. Time is urgent. Let's go to the sky and prepare while we talk in detail." After saying this, his main body performed the levitation technique and bounced into the sky. After the clone hugged Terum's waist, it also performed the levitation technique and flew up. Only the curious people below were left itching, but helpless. In the sky, Qishuang slowly formed a seal and solemnly said to Terumi, "I will use a magic technique to create an opportunity for you for about 1 minute. In this minute, except for you and me, anyone who is covered by the technique will lose the ability to resist and become a lamb to be slaughtered. And you only need to use the rapid diffusion characteristics of the boiling acid mist to kill them all in this minute. Kill as many as you can, so that the Hoshigaki clan will no longer have the strength to fight." As for whether Ming could kill all the ninjas of the Hoshigaki clan, Qishuang had no such worries. Because nearly 3,000 ninjas were spread on the ground, the coverage area was very large, at least more than a radius of nearly 1,000 meters. Although Ming's boiling acid mist has a strong diffusion ability and is a technique with a very wide killing range, with Ming's chakra, he is simply unable to produce acid mist covering an area of nearly 1,000 meters. Even with the foggy environment of the hidden mist village, the coverage area of 400 meters is almost the limit. Considering that the acid mist needs a certain concentration to effectively kill the enemy, the effective range with sufficient killing power in this 400 meter coverage is estimated to be about 300 meters. Ming's task is somewhat arduous. Originally, based on Qishuang's own range of casting, he is fully qualified to solve the problem on his own. But after a series of battles, his chakra consumption is very serious. After creating a fighting opportunity for Ming, he is simply unable to cast such a large-scale technique. Even after using this technique, his remaining fairy chakra will be exhausted, and even the state of fairy transformation is estimated to be unable to maintain. Therefore, he will use Ming's power to defeat the troops of Qishigaki. At the same time, after hearing his description, Terumi Mei suddenly understood something and said in surprise, "How can your technique cover such a large area?" Taking a deep breath of the air filled with water mist, Qishuang sighed, "If not, I wouldn't have taken you to waste your time." "That's true, you never do anything you are not sure of." Terumi Mei nodded and followed suit by flipping her fingers and slowly forming seals. However, Qishuang, who was concentrating on preparing the immortal technique, did not see that this time, Mei's seal formation seemed particularly slow and even a little unfamiliar. Moreover, it was a set of seal sequences he had never seen before. On the ground, looking at the watery ground around him, Qishigaki, who was following closely behind the large army, cursed, "Qishigaki, that bastard. What the hell is he doing?" At this time, he didn't know that Qishigaki had been defeated, which caused the technique to go out of control, and the water receded. He thought that Qishigaki deliberately lifted the technique. Now, without the geographical advantage of the water, it means that they will pay a greater price when attacking Terumi's base. Fortunately, before the geographical advantage of the water area disappeared, they had already taken down the Hazuki family and captured the Hazuki clan leader, Hazuki Masamune. They also incorporated some of Hazuki's ninjas, which not only did not reduce the number of casualties, but expanded a lot. Even without the advantage of the water area, it would be easy for them to defeat the remaining Terumi family. Of course, this is due to the betrayal of some of Hazuki's families. Without them, Hazuki would have to spend a lot of energy to defeat Hazuki. Even if the other party held on for a while, when the water area receded, Hazuki's attack would have become a sheep falling into the tiger's mouth. Speaking of this, the leaders of the many affiliated forces who betrayed Hazuki were even more regretful. They had just rebelled not long ago, and the water area retreated. However, once the bow is shot, there is no turning back. Since they have rebelled against Hazuki, it is impossible for them to return to Hazuki's camp. If they are fickle, they will only be disliked by both Hazuki and Hazuki, and it is unknown whether they will be punished in the end. Therefore, even if the water receded, and Hazuki had hope of a reversal, they still made the best of it, and fought all the way. The most powerful Hazuki clan was destroyed by their own people. When Qishigaki was happily imagining the good days, when the Qishigaki clan dominated Kirigakure, a subordinate came and interrupted his fantasy. Report to Master Kiichi, a small group of Terumi and Hazuki were found ahead. We also found traces of Hazuki Mainjetsu. Mainjetsu? Qishigaki grinned and said, "That's great. Order the troops to advance at full speed and eliminate them. Remember, don't let Mainjetsu run away. If he wants to escape, tell him that his father's life is still in my hands." The subordinate nodded and immediately passed the order down. Then, Qishigaki came to the water bowl guarded by several people in the back. Inside was Hazuki Masamune, who was locked up by them using the water prison technique. The water transformation technique of the Hazuki family has a strong ability to transform. Handcuffs and shackles are useless to them. Therefore, they can only use the water prison to trap Hazuki Masamune in it for the time being. In this way, no matter how he transforms, he can't escape the shackles of the water prison technique. Master Masamune, I have good news for you. You and your son will be reunited. Ha ha ha. Looking at the figure in the water bowl, Qishigaki smiled very proudly. The reason why he brought Hazuki Masamune with him was to deal with Hazuki Manayu. After all, the ninja sword genius is not called for nothing. With the opponent's ability, if he escapes, there will definitely be endless troubles. At this time, Hazuki Masamu no longer has the heroic appearance of the past, and he looks decadent and lifeless. The Hazuki family is everything he insists on, but unfortunately, all of this is shattered. His heart died with it. He didn't care about anything outside, but when Kiichi Hoshigaki mentioned Hazuki Manayu, he had a feeling that he couldn't explain. In the sky, seeing the Hoshigaki-style ninja troops surging from the west like a tide, Nanashiro gently asked the blue-skirted lady beside her, "Are you ready?" "Yes." Terumi Mei nodded solemnly. Nanashiro exhaled a long breath of turbid air and concentrated most of the fairy chakra in her clasped palms. Winter is here, and everything withers. Fairy technique ice release snow drifting on the earth. Elysium. I have always believed that the length of the name determines the level of the skill. Just like Hashirama's fairy technique would release true thousand hands head Buddha. Ha 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 ha. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.